1 day session of Grief to Life. And I see many of you are in the chat area already, but I want to just invite you guys to come into the chat section. Also, want to make sure my mic is working good and you can hear me okay as well. Peace and blessings. I see Israel. Welcome, Israel. Good day, Carol. What I normally do at the beginning is ask everyone to just put in where you are joining us from. What state are you joining us from? I'm in the beautiful state of New Jersey. All right, Carol, Washington. All right, New York. So you guys can hear me okay. That's great. That's the first step. Carmen, New York, Maryland, Ohio, Oklahoma, France. Wow, Lay. Welcome, Florida. Washington State, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Grand Rapids. Okay, I'm actually going out there in June. North Carolina, South Florida, Delaware, Alabama, Georgia, Houston, Texas will be out there as well too. We're going to be doing something actually in Houston, Texas, in the month of May. I'll talk a little bit about it as we go further in. But welcome all of you. I'm glad you guys can hear me okay. We're going to be going in this Grief to Life 1 day webinar. Now, you've already seen the chat area on the side, which is where you can communicate with me if you want to ask any questions. Not in the chat area. I would suggest you put it into the questions section. There should be a little question mark next to it. I see someone already has put something in there. Tiana. Okay, so Tiana, I see you're from Anchorage, Alaska. Welcome from Alaska. But that question area is where you can also, primarily put questions in there. And at the end of the session, I will go through and answer any questions in that question area. Okay, so at the end of the session, I will go through and answer. Now, the session is going to be roughly about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, and after that time, then I will answer any questions that you may have about anything I shared, and also anything that you may want to ask in reference to grief as well. Okay, and that'll be at the end of the session. So the questions go in the question area. The chat goes into the chat area. If you happen to ask questions in the chat, I will go through those at the end as well too. All right, now typically during the session, I don't have an opportunity to read through all of the responses or the comments that you guys make. Every once in a while, I'll be able to glimpse and see some of the things. However, definitely use the chat area to share, again, if anything that you may have experienced or you may have attempted or tried, anything that resonates with you, also put that into the chat area as well. Now, this session, as I say, every session is different. It's different because we're usually made up of different people that's in the sessions, but I'm going to be sharing some things with you towards the end of the session that will make this unique, and also see how we're going to move forward in the upcoming weeks. Typically, for those of you here for the first time, I run these sessions just about every week. Last week I was out of the country, so I wasn't able to run it last week, but just about every week I run these 1 day sessions in reference to grief, this Grief to Life. And we're talking primarily about how can we find ways to move forward in life while realistically a part of us is missing when we've experienced a loss, when we've experienced a death. And also ways that we can find ourselves, or people can find themselves staying stuck in grief, but also, how we can find some ways to move forward. Now, as we talk about grief, let me just share, grief is such a broad experience. Primarily we look at grief and we think about it when someone has died. However, we have experienced and people do experience grief for a variety of reasons. And they've been on these sessions. And I'll say this, even though we primarily talk about it, even in this session, about someone that has died, that has gone on, but if you're experiencing grief from any of the other reasons, some of the things that you learn or hear today can also benefit and help you as well. But primarily when I'm talking today, it's going to be in reference to, someone has died in our lives, a loved one has gone. Now, as we're about to get started, I ask those of you, especially those who just came on, also if you can put in the state that you're joining us from, I'll be able to see it afterwards, and it's good to just see how many areas that we are reaching and how many people we're able to connect with. Again, I'm in the state of New Jersey. Last reminder, any question that you have, I will answer it at the end of the session. Just please put it into the question area. And if you put it in chat, I will go through it at the end. All right. Now, many of you should have received, and let me see if I can put this on screen, a 1-day worksheet from us in the email. And if you signed up for it, then you would have received the 1-day worksheet. So you can have that available for you to be able to take notes. If you don't, just have a pen and paper handy so you can take any notes that you may want to take. Also, what we've done is we've given you a really, really helpful tool that we use pretty often, but I will explain to you more as we go further in the session. It's the assessment questionnaire. All right, so you should have that as well. You don't really need that right now, but just if you have it, just keep it handy. At the end of the session, I'll tell you what you can do with that. Okay, so let's go back to here. So, okay, welcome. I see more from Oregon, from New York, Missouri, Michigan, Myrtle Beach. I am in the beautiful state of New Jersey. It's beautiful here because we've kind of broken a little bit of our cold spell, and we're getting up into 70s this week. So that makes it even more beautiful, even though I do enjoy the snow as well. All right. So we're going to be talking about how to move forward while part of us is missing, and ways people can stay stuck in grief and how you can avoid them. So let's get started. And we're going to first talk about, why so many people can stay stuck in grief. And it's not that we really want to, no one wants to be experiencing grief. I've heard it before, and you may have seen this, like even as we have our Facebook group, that people shared it, like, this is a group that none of us want to belong to, but it's helpful once we have, the community and have the support from other people. But really, none of us want to be in a grief webinar. None of us want to be experiencing the pain and anguish of grief, and none of us want to stay in it. I'm pretty sure that you guys would rather be doing something else than watching a grief webinar. Not because the webinar is not going to be helpful. I'm just saying, you'd rather not be experiencing grief. But the reality is that, we are, and it's something that we experience that in life. And it's pretty natural, pretty normal. And I'll talk more about that later on. But why so many people can stay stuck in grief? For these reasons I've listed, and, just uncertainty, unsure of, like, what are we supposed to do now? What is the next step for us to take? And I'll say this is for, those of us that are first time really experiencing grief and loss, but also if we've experienced grief and loss for, over multiple experiences, there still can be that, like, okay, well, what do we do now? What's the next steps for me to take to live, to find reasons, motivation, inspiration, purpose for me to live again? Just unsure of those steps. Another one is there can be a disconnection from others. How many of you have experienced that? Just being disconnected from people that you would normally be around, but there's just a disconnection. Whether you're the only one that's grieving, they may not be grieving as you are, or just grieving differently. Just feeling that disconnection. You don't get to hang around with them like you used to. Or it's just kind of maybe a little odd or a little awkward. It's just not the same. There's a disconnection. Also, I say this, that sometimes we get this helpful advice that just really doesn't help. Such as, is it time for you to move on, or you have to be strong? And these words, I think they're meant to be helpful, and they're meant to encourage us, but they can be very, very empty because we have no idea, how can we, move on? How can we be strong when we feel like we're at our weakest point in life? So these are some of the reasons I listed why we can stay stuck in grief. But let me ask you this question, and part of this I will ask you questions and see if you can respond to in the chat area. What happens if we leave grief left alone with no help? What happens if grief is left alone with no help? What do you guys think will happen? And if we continue on and we don't look to getting, I saw someone said they, doing therapy, some may do counseling, We do like coaching, but what happens if no one does anything? Okay, Anissa says turn to alcohol. James, depression, depressed. Olga says depressed, disconnect from everyone, depression and anxiety. Lose my mind, anger, depression. Okay, these are all excellent answers. All right, and they're all true. These are, and I want to encourage all of you that are on here as well, that even just being on here today is a step towards getting some help for your grief. Acknowledging that yes, we're grieving, but then also that we want to find ways or motivation and inspiration and learn how we can live again. So this is at least a step for this time that we'll be on today. Okay. Now, something I didn't do before, but I'm going to do it in a second. These are some of the answers I would give for this question, based upon what many others have said over the course of the time we've been doing it. But if we leave grief alone with no help, we can have prolonged emotional pain. Okay. And I say prolonged, meaning, after this session where we're here together for an hour and 15 minutes or so, I'm not going to make a false promise to you and say, everything is going to be perfect after you listen here for an hour and 15 minutes. No, that's not the reality of grief. I will present some things to you that will hopefully help you in this grief journey that we're on, but it's a journey. Okay. So when I say prolonged emotional pain, is that it can carry on longer in the same intensity than it needs to be. Now, grief is going to be with us, and I want to again set the expectations. Grief is going to be with us for our life. Okay. The person that we love, the person that is no longer here for the rest of our life, we will remember them and we will miss them. And the impact that they had in our lives in that way will not be the same. So that's going to stay with us. However, how grief can impact us and keep us stuck or keep us in that deep depression, mourning, how we shared some things before, that doesn't have to stay the same way throughout our life. Okay. So when I say prolonged emotional pain, if we don't do anything about it, then we can just stay in that deep depression, the deep mourning, that for a longer time than it needs to be. All right. Now, I'll share more as we go further. A second thing that can happen if we experience grief and we don't do anything to help it is that it can put a strain on our relationships. I already spoke a little bit before about, we can have that disconnection from others, but it can strain the relationships that we have with our other loved ones in our lives. I've seen divorces that have resulted. I've seen, broken families and isolation and things like that. It just strains the relationships that we have existing as well. Again, if we don't do anything about it. And the last one I'll say this is that even though we primarily think about grief as something that's emotional or mentally we're dealing with grief, it can definitely also manifest within us as health challenges, so physical health challenges. So it's not just on an emotional plane; it's actually also going to affect us physically as well. You could just think about it. Imagine the stress that we have. Imagine the no sleep that we have and how that can impact and affect us. Also, even partaking of different things that can also impact us physically as well. So if we don't do anything about our grief, then it can present, things that you mentioned already, but also these health challenges, strained relationships, and also the prolonged emotional pain. Now, I'm going to share with you, before I even get into really the presentation of, ways that we can move forward in life, I want to share with you 3 significant grief experiences I've had and some of the things that I've learned through those experiences. And many people find it helpful and beneficial because even as I share my experiences, then there's things that you can learn from it as well. All right. But before I get into that, something I want to do early, I just slipped my mind to do it. I want to know how many people are here for the very, very first time that you're coming onto this one-day webinar. If you're here for the first time, then I ask you just put a 1 into the chat. Just put a 1 if you're here for the first time. Now, if you've been here more than one time, it doesn't matter how many times more, just put a 2 if you've been here for more than one time. All right. Okay. All right. So I see a lot of 1s, but there's a couple of 2s in there. So welcome back for those of you are here again for the second time. Especially those of you here last week as well too. As last week we had a little bit of technical difficulty, but thank you for all of you coming back and being part of this session, this experience, and this journey that we're on. But many of you are here for the first time, so welcome to all of you. Now, those of you that are returning at the end of the session, and it's really for all of you, I want to share something with you for some things that we can do going forward so that we can continue to build on what we have learned and what we started from this session. All right, so it'll be for everyone, so the 1s and the 2s. But thank you all for being here today. All right, so some of the things I'm going to share with you again right now, 3 experiences that I have gone through grief, even though I've grieved through other experiences as well, but these are 3 that I normally share on this platform. My very first experience with grief was with my mom, and this is in the year 2000. And I'm the youngest. I'm the only boy in our family, and had a very special relationship with my mother. And when she died, it was a great shock to me. Not to say that she was ill before, but just, I mean, death overall, it is, you can never really be prepared to lose someone. As much as we may, think that, whatever, it's always it's a shock. All right, I can't put it any other way than that. So with my mom, though, first experience with death is in 2000. Young man, time was 25 at that point. And I experienced anger with her. Now, my anger, as I said, with her, my anger was directed to my mom. I was angry because in my mind, she allowed herself to get sick and to die and to leave me. And, every time I say it afterwards, it's kind of odd as it like rolls out my mouth and say it, because it doesn't quite make sense as I think about it now, 26 years later. But this is honestly what I was experiencing and what I felt when she died. I was angry with her, and it didn't just stay there. Actually, it actually has went down through the years with me, when I even see it in other relationships with other people when they get sick, and in a way, I kind of revert back to that experience, and I kind of get upset with them for allowing themselves to get sick and not take care of themselves. And this is what I really got this a lot from my mom, my experience with my mom. But I experienced anger with her. Now, honesty and being honest with what we're experiencing, what we're feeling with grief, is going to be vital and important for us even as we move forward. So just if you take a note of something too, just being honest with how it's impacting us and how we're experiencing it. But from 2000, we actually started a business. I put it on the bottom right side of the screen. You see it says Honor You. And from that business, we've actually been able to help hundreds of thousands, literally families, to honor the life of their loved ones, honor their memory. So there's a lesson that I learned, as I shared before, that is my lesson, but I encourage you to, listen to some of these lessons that I'm sharing and take them for yourself if you can, and just maybe even write them down, because it's not just me. I've seen many other people that also, benefited from these lessons, but also learned these same lessons as well. But one of the lessons I learned is on the bottom. It says that something positive can result from my grief. Okay, something positive can result from my grief. In my mom's case, yes, we started a business. We started a business where we've helped hundreds of thousands of other families. We started a business that has helped to support me and our family, help support our staff and team and others. Honestly, my mom's passing is really the reason I'm even here today, because I was in a whole different field at that time, and I wasn't thinking at all about, death or helping people in grief or anything like that. So something positive can result from my grief. Now I know right now for many of us, it may be something that like, how can something positive can result from my grief? Just I ask you to just bear with me as we kind of go forward as well. But I've seen, and I won't just use my example, many people that have done some really incredible and powerful things as a result of going through or experiencing grief and loss. Okay, many people have done that. Now, my second experience with grief that I'll share, even though I said I've had other experiences as well, was with my dad, and this is in the year 2017. So it's 9 years ago. It goes so quickly. It's 9 years ago my dad died. Now, I told you all before, I'm in the state of New Jersey. However, I grew up in New York, in Queens, New York. And my dad lived there all of my life. My parents lived there all of my life, and he still lived in the same house. And as he had gotten older, he started to need some extra care, and he just came to stay with us for some time, just to help him out with some things. He came to live with us in New Jersey. And I really, honestly, we weren't expecting that he was going to die at that time, but it just so happened that these ended up being the last 3 months of his life. And he died while he was at my home. And why I say I experienced now with him guilt was the day that he died, I actually was out of town. I was away for a couple of days for another conference. So with my dad, I experienced now guilt for not being around for him at that time. And I love my parents dearly, and I wasn't able to be there for him, even though my wife was there and my eldest sons, my children were in the house, but they were there with him. But it teaches me a couple of things just from this experience. First of all, I've shared with you now 2 experiences of grief and loss. And I'm the same individual. However, I've experienced them now 2 times, and they were actually really completely different. Anger with my mom before, now guilt because of my dad. So it in a way shows us, even if you go through multiple experiences of grief, that grief is unique each and every time. As I stated before, it's not something you can really prepare for, because you don't know how it may affect you for this particular time you experience grief. And it's not necessarily going to be the exact same way as before. All right. So I don't say, and I don't think anyone can say really that they have mastered grief in that regards, because it can appear to us so vastly different every time that we experience it. So that's one thing I'll say that I learned with my dad. I'm the same individual. Now, what I shared with people as to why it can appear differently is because we have different relationships with different people. They are different individuals, and their impact in our lives, their influence in our lives is different. Also, we're at different seasons or stages of our life as well too. So how we can experience grief is going to be different. So again, it's not that anyone has just mastered grief and we got it down packed. It's a new experience, almost like a new experience every time. Now, what I'll say as a little bit of I don't want to say warning, but if, when we talked before about if we don't deal with grief, if we haven't dealt with grief before and we start to have multiple experiences of grief, the impact that it can have on us can start to kind of build up on different levels, I'll say. And sometimes we can think that it's getting harder each and every time, but it's really that we're experiencing it on multiple levels now because we've experienced grief for multiple times. So some of you, I'm sure on here, have experienced grief a couple of times, but each one of them are impacting us differently. All right, so let me go ahead really quickly with my dad. So on the bottom right corner there, I actually did something while I was away, while I was at this conference. And I didn't realize at the time how beneficial or how helpful this is going to be for me. And this may be one of the things that you want to write down. I would encourage you to write this down, of something that you can do. Because again, I didn't realize how beneficial it's going to be for me. But what I did while I was away is that I used I believe it was my iPad. It was iPad on my laptop, probably both at the time. And I just opened it up and I started recording myself speaking. And I basically recorded myself because I um, recorded everything that had happened, like me talking to him on the phone, me talking to my wife, getting all the details, make sure that I had all of the information safely recorded on that video. Everything I was going through, all these different details. And what that did for me afterwards was that it allowed me to, in a sense, like release some of the things that I was holding in my mind or just attempting to remember, because I knew I had now had it safely recorded or stored away on video. So that, again, I can't say that I knew this before. I really just I did it, and I realized afterwards how important this was for me. So when I've shared it with people afterwards, yes, you can do a video record. Yes, you can even do audio record. But I used to tell people to just do some type of a journal. All right, and it's not too late. You could do it today. You can do it after we get off here. You can do a journal, and people that have journaled have found such great benefit from it. Same like what I shared before with the video, that they've said that it provided a release for them. And again, we hold things in our memory. We attempt to hold things in our memory. We don't even realize it. But when we can safely get it written down, it helps to release our minds from holding on to that information, because it's safely stored away. All right. So the journal is vital in that point, or it's helpful, I'll say, in that aspect, that we can journal. So I usually tell people, especially if you haven't journaled before, and I'm curious to know how many of you have journaled. Some of you are new, and if you have journaled before, let me know your experience with that. Some of you who have been on before and you've heard me talk about journaling, hopefully you maybe have done some journaling since then, and just let me know maybe in the chats how it has helped you, or even if it hasn't helped you. All right. Everything I share with you today, and I'll be honest, I'm going to share a lot of information with you today, hopefully not too much to overwhelm you, but I want to share a lot of different things and tools that can help. And it's not for you to do everything. Okay. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed after listening to me. I want you to hear the different things that I share. And if you take one and use one, that is fantastic. That is great. That is excellent. Okay. So please don't feel like you have to take everything that I'm sharing. Just take one. And that is a great start, a great step. And then we'll talk further about, how we kind of can continue on this going forward as well. All right. So the journaling is to safely store our thoughts on paper. Also, another thing I say that does to us is bring some clarity. All right. Because so often when we're grieving, and how many of you can relate to this, that it kind of feels like a fog? Your mind is just like it's just not clear. It's just a fog. I can't put any differently than that. But by writing and journaling, it helps to get some clarity for us. All right. Let me see really quickly. All right, Linda says she journals every day. Write my thoughts about how I feel and what happened. I feel it's helpful because I can write down feelings and thoughts that I cannot say to anyone. Excellent. Perfect, Linda. Yolanda says it's hard to journal. Okay, excellent. Perfect. I want honesty. Okay. And let me even go further. Tell me if journaling is good for you. Tell me if it's challenging. I remember one man in particular, I was sharing with him about journaling. He actually was in person. It wasn't even online, a friend of mine. And he was like, I do not want to journal. I'm not going to journal. And he was just like adamant. He's not a journaler. He doesn't want to journal. Yet, after just talking to him about some of the benefits that he may experience from journaling, then he actually went ahead and did journal. I don't pressure, I'm just sharing with you. Okay. Again, you can take the things that you feel may be helpful, beneficial for you. But I just, encourage him, if he'd like to get some of these benefits, you can attempt to journal. And he tells me a little bit later on that he went ahead and journaled, And he just told me how helpful it was for him. He used the words like I shared earlier. He said release and relief. So for those of you who may be a little hesitant to journal, have never journaled before, I'd encourage you to attempt it. Okay. Again, no forcing at all. If we'll share some more things as we go along as well. Let me tell you though, for those of you who do want to journal, because I saw some people that they journal already, and that's great that you journal. And if you journal already, you can maybe attempt it the way I'm going to share with you. And if you never journaled before, this will make it simple by these 3 things I'll tell you. One is to set a timer for your journaling time. Okay, set a timer. And I advise or encourage not to set a timer more than 5 minutes. Okay. This is not a full day's project. This is not even going to take a couple of hours. It's really going to take you 5 minutes. You set your timer, and at that 5-minute timer, you're done. Okay. So this way, once you're starting out, this isn't going to be a long, it's just going to be the next 5 minutes you're going to take to journal. All right. So you get a timer. Right now, when you have your pen and paper together, number 1 is get the timer. Number 2 is to basically write down everything that is on your mind, everything that comes to your mind. And it can be definitely in relation to grief, but doesn't just everything that is like on your mind, that's kind of weighing on your mind. Write it. Okay. And I used to tell people, if you don't know how to start off saying, I don't know what I'm going to write, but boom, and go from there. Okay. Because as I stated before, the honesty part is critical. You want to be honest with our writing. All right. So write down everything that comes to your mind. This is not for you to share with anyone else, unless you want to, but this is not for anyone else's eyes. You don't have to send it to me. And I also say, don't write to make it sound good. All right. Don't write to make it, sound nice. Write to make it honest. Okay. You could be angry at the world. You could be angry at God. You could be angry at the person. As I said, like even my mom, just write honestly everything that is on your mind, everything that you're thinking. But remember, you have the 5-minute window anyway. All right. So you don't need to get the punctuation just right. You don't need to even get the spelling just right. You just honestly writing. Now, the third thing I'll say with this is write as fast as you can. Okay. Write as fast as you can. As fast as your pen and your hands can go to paper, write as fast as you can. The reason I say to write as fast as you can is because it helps to avoid you second guessing what you're writing, and it just really gets the honest thoughts out there. Okay, so those are the 3 tips I give for journaling when they come into these sessions. And again, if you have journaled before, I encourage you to just give it a go this way. Okay, and if you haven't, then this is hopefully an easy way for you to get started at 5 minutes. Okay. And you can do it today. Get to 5 minutes. All right. So I shared at the beginning, the chats, I don't always get to see it during the sessions because I want to keep it going in time. Afterwards, I will answer every question that is in the question area. And also, if you put questions in the chat, I'll go through and I'll skim through and I'll see some of them. But if you have any questions during the session, please just put it into the question area. Okay. All right. So that was my dad. That was the journaling from there. My third experience was with my dear friend. He was like my brother. His name was Chris. And this is in 2023. So now you got to imagine 2000. I'm working, I'm initially experiencing grief, but now we started a business called Honor You, and we're helping so many other families since then. So by 2023, I really thought that, I got this, I'm okay. I'm good. I can handle this. Unlike what I told you guys before, because I know we never really master grief, but I thought that I was good and it really didn't affect me. But I'll say it's because I wasn't even thinking about grief or maybe even prepared in that regard. It affected me in a profound way that I never experienced before. And for me, I started to have some panic and anxiety attacks. All right. Now, I've never had this before in life. I've never had panic or anxiety attacks. And it wasn't until my dear friend, he died. And it didn't even happen right away. It happened a couple of months afterwards. And my wife was there, and she actually helped me to like trace back to when did any kind of even feeling occur. And it was really during the time of like his like hospice, his hospice time, and going from there. So that's how I was able to trace it back to my friend, or my grief as a result of my friend passing. So I don't know if any of you have experienced panic or anxiety attacks, whether through grief or not, but I'll share with you really quickly what has uh, helped me so much. Angela, I see you said your anxiety is through the roof. Okay. So what helped me primarily, there was a couple of things we did, but I don't have time to share all of that on this session. But one of the main things I think that helped me was the breath work and learning about how to breathe. And I was like probably many of you on here, like, okay, I know how to breathe. I'm here. You inhale and out here, exhale. But I learned, when I'm going through a panic anxiety attack, my heart is racing. It's like beating out of my chest, and I'm so focused on attempting to get air in because I feel like I can't catch my breath. But when we're going through this way and our heart is racing, the exhale is what we need to focus on, because that's what helps to bring our bodies back into what we call parasympathetic state, which is a more normal state, bring us down. So for me, that looked like, okay, instead of, my normal, just regular breathing, I had to make my exhale at least twice as long as my inhale. So my inhale, I would do for about 3 seconds, and my exhale, I would intentionally do it for about 7 or 8 seconds. And that's the routine I had to do. So my exhale had to be at least twice as long. Now, I'm not going to say to you that it was easy. It was hard. It was difficult. It was challenging. It took every ounce of me to do that because I wanted to just try and get that air in, but I had to stick with my routine of 3 seconds inhale, 7 or 8 seconds exhale. And once I went through that routine, then I knew within about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, my body would be relaxed and I would be, more in a normal state. All right. So now this didn't happen overnight. It wasn't an overnight thing. Within the course of a night, I probably had about 8, 9, maybe 10 panic attacks over the course of the night, because night times for me the worst. They were the worst, and I've heard it from other people too that night times, there's just something about the night times. It was worse. But I also experienced panic anxiety attacks when I was like at the dentist's office, or the nail salon. Just throughout the course of the day, I was having the attacks too. Just night times were the hardest. But the breath work, as I just shared, when I had learned it and started to practice that, it wasn't easy. But I'll say this: after the first time of doing it, then it got better. The reason being because after I did it that first time, I knew what to expect each time afterwards. That was going to be about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then I would get calm again. So I would just, control or force myself to do the 3 second inhale, 7 or 8 second exhale. All right. So again, I don't want to, anything I say to you here, I'll share more later on. It's not that it's easy. All right. But they're effective. All right. It was effective. Okay. So it does require some work. It does require some effort. Even just like we say, coming into this grief webinar, we don't necessarily want to be on this thing here, but this is some effort that we've showed up, that we've turned on the computer or turned on our phone, we've logged on to see. This is some effort that's required to get towards, some help for our grief. All right. So hopefully that part may help somebody as well too in breath work. And that since then I've learned so many other ways of, doing breath work and so forth. Different techniques. All right. So the panic anxiety attacks. Now my friend Chris, he was a great encourager. This was just his personality. This was his impact in my life. He inspired me to do so many different things. And it's not funny, but it's just interesting that even in his passing, in his death, he inspired me to make some really important decisions in my life that not only affected me, but my entire family, and really put me to be here today. All right. Yes, we've been helping families with our business Honor You from 2000, so 26 years. But to put this into actually a program, what we call Grief to Life today, it's really because of my friend Chris. So his life inspired me. This is a lesson I got from my friend, was that grief can inspire me. Again, this is my lesson, but I encourage you to take some of these lessons for yourself. And I'll share with you, because you may be thinking, like, how can grief inspire me? This is devastating. This is painful. This is hard. And two ways I initially share with people how it can inspire you and you can get motivated, because so often we find it hard to even have purpose in life after we've lost a loved one so close to us. But one thing I'll say, or these two I'll share. The first one is, there may have been something that our loved ones were really committed to doing, and this is what they were focused on doing. And now that they're no longer here, maybe it's something that we want to now take up. It's kind of like passing the baton, and we start to even take it further. They maybe carried it so far, and maybe we now further it along in honor of them. Okay. So this is how our grief can inspire us and give us even some purpose in life and some motivation. So that way is one, that our loved ones were maybe doing something. Another way I share too, and there's other ways too, I just want to share these two really quickly so we can keep going, is maybe there's something that our loved ones used to always tell us that they could see us doing, or that they wanted us to do, or, they were encouraging us to do this thing. And now that they're no longer here, we can feel even that much more inspired and motivated to do these things. Again, really in honor of our loved ones, and that much more motivated. Like, for instance, me coming on here just about every week for these sessions, I'm inspired. I'm inspired because, one, I get to share the story about my mom, my dad, and my dear friend. But also, and people tell me this often, that your parents and your friends, they would be so proud of you to see what you're doing, and that inspires me. That keeps me coming back and like, okay, you know what? I want to keep coming back. I want to keep sharing and helping and sharing this information with more and more people. Despite challenges, despite things going on in life, despite I'm just motivated to keep doing it. Again, now these sessions, I don't think I shared it before in this one here. These sessions, we're definitely talking about how we can move forward in life, but it's absolutely not in any way, shape, or form about forgetting about our loved ones. All right. This is about how can you and I move forward in life while still honoring our loved ones, while still, having their memory with us, but that being a source or a catalyst for us to even want to move forward and live forward, as opposed to what grief so oftentimes is, where we are stuck in grief and we don't want to take steps, or we don't know how to take steps, or we don't feel the support or the encouragement or the know-how to take steps. So that's what this Grief to Life program is about. How can we move forward in life inspired because of this life that impacted us so much, but now we want to live even more in honor of them. Okay, so this program, Grief to Life program, I'm going to share with you really quickly what it is, and we're going to get further into this. So Grief to Life is founded on 4Ds framework. Okay, this is how we term it, 4Ds framework. So there's 4 basically stages to it. There's The first D is the determine stage, determining like where we are in our grief, determining honestly, how is our grief impacting us? What area is it really impacting us? And this is so very important and essential for us to take steps to be able to move forward. I mean, it's really very foundational. I'll put it like that. Many of us have used some kind of GPS or navigation system on our phones or in a car, what have you. And you may say that you want to get to France. We had somebody here in France. Well, let's go with the car. We want to go to Florida. You say that you want to go to Florida and you put in a destination that you want to go to Florida, but the first thing that has to figure out before it can tell you how to get there, let's see where you are. All right, let's see where you come from. So if I'm in New Jersey, then it's then able to map out, okay, from New Jersey down to Florida, it's these steps that you have to go through. But it has to know where you're starting from. And this is our first step in order to move forward in life. We have to be honest with ourselves and see where's our grief impacting us in our lives. This is one of the tools that we've given you. I'll get into that later on, but this is one of the tools that we use for the determine stage. So you guys already have it, and again, I'll share with you later on about it. That's the assessment questions. All right, it's helping us to honestly determine where our grief is impacting us. Secondly, the second D is for us to decide. Okay, so once we know where we are, we have to decide, okay, where is it that we want to go? Is it Florida that we want to go? Or is it Pennsylvania that we want to go? Or we want to go to Chicago? Where is it that we're deciding that we want to go? What does it look, what does healing for us, quote unquote, look like? When we are maybe better, what is better for us? Now, let me say this, and this is someone saying, I attempt to say as much as I can within these sessions, but this is very personal, okay? This is a personal answer that only you can answer, really. So, like, I don't tell you where you should decide that you should be in your grief, all right, or where you should be, what's better for you, all right? This is where you actually are in control of this, where you decide what is looking better, what is better looking like you. So for instance, we had one session where it was a group session and we had two people in there, and one person, they wanted to be able to talk about their loved ones without crying. All right, because every time they spoke about them, they said that they brought up, every time they brought up their loved one, they would cry. Now, within the same session, there was another person that wanted to be able to cry because she felt like when she was bottling a lot of her emotions in, and she wasn't able to fully express her emotions. So that now they seemingly had two different, goals, but the program still helped because, again, it's really about you deciding what is better looking like for you. All right, so that's the second D, where we get to decide. Then the third D is to develop, and that's in two ways. I say you develop a map or a strategy to get from where you are starting from to where you decide that you want to go. All right, and then I also say developing with the tools and giving you the tools and the support that you can become that person that can actually achieve those, desired goals of getting better. Okay, so developing with the strategy and also as individuals with the tools, whether it's like we talked before about, journaling or something like that, or maybe even like we said about the breath work. Then the last stage of D is called deliver. And we use that more so in the area of our group and the support, the encouragement, the accountability that we can hold within our group as well. And those are the 4 Ds. So I saw someone on the chat before. Again, I get to glimpse at certain things as well too, like how can we keep in touch with each other on here? This is the power of the group. All right. I facilitate, I share, But the group is really what makes this powerful. Now, that said, I'm missing something that I didn't do before, but I have to put in here. Our Facebook group. All right, this is one way for all of you guys to stay in touch with us is our Facebook group, which is tremendous. It's getting better and better. So I'm putting this into the chat area right now. All right. And I'm sorry, I meant to do it earlier, but we have it now. All right. So that's the Facebook group. So you can join the Facebook group. It's just actually 4 questions, excuse me. And you can join our Facebook group. And we post in there. I post in there. Other people post in there as well, too. We're getting more to have a community of posting. Our Facebook group is different. Okay. We're not just posting, inspirational, motivational sayings about it. It's a space where I want us to encourage and support each other to take those meaningful forward steps and movement in life and get that encouragement from the community. All right. So that's what our Facebook group is there for. So I put it into the chat area. So hopefully you guys can join it. And if you have any of our emails, it's in the bottom of the email as well, too, where you can just click on that and join our Facebook group. Okay. So determine, decide, these 4 Ds: determine, decide, develop, deliver. And we call it your roadmap from pain to purpose. Now, our formula for this and how this works for everyone is we believe that faith plus tools plus community equal transformation. Faith plus tools plus community equals transformation. So our program, it is a biblically based program. All right. Everything that I share, even on the session, will have some kind of biblical root in there. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that everyone that's in the program is Christian, of the Christian faith. It's because we've had people in the program that have been of other religions. People have been of no religion. They, don't associate with any religion whatsoever. And they've all benefited from this program. But I do definitely let people know that, everything that I share, everything that we share within our program has some scriptural reference, has some type of biblical foundation under it. Okay, so faith plus tools. So we're giving you a couple of tools already, and we'll give out some more tools as well as we go further. Faith plus tools plus community. Okay, community aspect, like I shared before, there's something about community that really brings it all together. Now, I'm going to share that as we go further as well. Equals transformation. All right. So let me quickly, I know I haven't done this yet, but my name is Samuel Stewart, and that is my lovely wife there, Karen, and we both run this Grief to Life coaching program. Now, my wife has not done these one-day webinars yet, but she helps me in every aspect of this program. Like if you respond to us by email, if you go on Facebook and you see a response from me, it's 50-50 chance it's me, it's 50-50 chance it's my wife, because she helps me in the back end with the things. And actually, probably some of them is more her than myself that's responding to. But yeah, so we both run this program together. And as I go towards the end, I'll share with you, what we're going to be doing going forward, especially for those of you who want to come back again and take it further on the journey. And my wife is helpful with all that. She's been on the Zoom. She comes on the Zooms as we do Zoom sessions. This webinar is more of an introduction, and you guys can communicate through the chat. Zoom, sometimes we do Zooms because it allows us a little bit more, interaction, engagement, where you guys can talk as well too, which is good for building the community, building the, our Grief to Life family, as we like to call it. All right. So a little bit about me and my wife and I, we've been married for 30 years. We have 9 children and 5 grandchildren. And you see a picture on the bottom that is all of our children, 1 grand in that. Since then, we've had 4 other grandchildren. We recently had 3 in the last 3 months, I think. I'm a licensed minister and a grief to life coaching minister. Okay. We've been helping families experiencing grief and loss for the past 26 years. Like I said, we started in 2000. I'm the author of several books, including Grief to Life, Transforming Pain into Purposeful Growth, which some of you may have. This is it here. It comes in hard copy, and then also there's an ebook that you can get as well. All right. Now, our program that we have here, it's sponsored by Lighthouse Ministries. Okay. Sometimes people come on and they, even before they come on, they ask and say, well, is there a cost for this? Is there? No. Well, Lighthouse Ministries has sponsored our program. And, that's really where all this comes together. So we provide information. We definitely do take donations in Lighthouse Ministries, but Lighthouse Ministry sponsors programs. So all of you that are on here, there's not a cost for you to be on here. We just want to help as many people as possible through the information that we can share, through the resource that we can provide as well. My book, though, that is separate. There's like an ebook if you want to get the ebook, but the ebook and the book has most of the information I'll share. Well, it has, some of the things that we're going to go over here and a little bit more in depth with the book, but I'll say this, the community aspect is really, really, really important. Okay. And you don't get that through the book. You get the foundation, you get the principles, you get some of, the references and some of the tools, but the community aspect for our program is really, really important. Okay. So we're going to get into how to move forward and ways that people can stay stuck in grief and how you can avoid them. I told you guys we're going to be on here for about an hour and 15. So we have a little less than 20 minutes, but I'm going to get through these. Hopefully you guys have gotten something from what I've shared already and just have, been able to learn some things from there. I'm going to share more as we go through this. All right. So these are a couple of ways that people can stay stuck in grief. One is by doing nothing. Okay, doing nothing. And so many people think that grief will kind of go away on its own. And just by doing nothing, that's enough. But it's just not the case. As we talked about earlier, is if we have grief and it's left alone with no help. Do you guys remember what happens? If we have grief and it's left alone with no help, what are some of the things that you guys shared and maybe I put on screen as well too that happens if we don't do anything relative to our grief? Let's see. Remember? Okay. You guys hear me okay? I see. Nice. Okay, health decline. There we go. Thank you, Ola. All right, you guys can hear me okay. Wonderful. So health declines. Yes, remember it's not just emotional, but also can be physical. All right, so if we don't do anything to address our grief, then it doesn't get better. And oftentimes it can get worse. It can swell up on the inside of us in regards to, we just I don't mean physically swell. I mean just like we're just holding these emotions in, or we're holding these things in, and then it can definitely manifest physically, but then it also can cause us to just lash out at people or just have some type of a emotional verbal eruption in some way, some capacity. So grief is not like other things that we could just say, okay, we'll leave it alone, it'll just go away on its own, because oftentimes it can cause it to get worse and cause matters to get worse. So there's a saying that we have probably grown up hearing, that time heals all wounds, but that's just not the case with grief. As I put on the screen, that time alone doesn't heal all wounds. All right. Now, I don't just leave it like that. I didn't put it on screen because I'd love for you to write it down so you remember this part. Time alone doesn't heal all wounds. It also takes effort. All right. This is important. Time alone doesn't heal all wounds. It also takes effort. So we have to participate. We have to do something. There's things that we can do in reference to our grief. And again, I'm a minister. This is coming from a Christian biblical perspective, and I'm going to share it like this. So oftentimes we allow ourselves to just wait and expect God to do all these things for us, but He has equipped us and given us tools to be able to do some things for ourselves. All right, definitely empowered by Him, but it's not that we sit back and wait for Him to do everything for us. He's equipped us. There's a fantastic saying that my father taught me, and I love sharing things that my father taught me. And this is another, I would say, part of grief too, and sharing lesson that you learn. But that saying was, what God can do, I can't. But what I can do, He won't. Okay. That's the first time I've ever shared this on this webinar session. So again, they're always unique in different ways. But so my father taught me that saying, what God can do, I cannot. There's things that we have to trust Him for. For a miracle, we have to trust Him for things that only He can do. I can't do it. So I got to trust Him for that. But then there's things, what I can do, He's not going to do it for us. All right. He won't. Okay. So we can't just sit back and think, okay, God will just, fix this for me and I don't have to take any part in it. That's just not the reality. It's not, even learning through biblical stories and things. There's things that, yes, that only He can do, but there's things that He requires, we have to participate with it. All right. Now there's a statement that I have on this screen as well, that it's okay to not be okay. And this is one of the key statements of our Grief to Life program. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. All right. Now this is a, let me explain to you this way. This is a really important part of our philosophy of how we go through this program, that we totally validate, we support. It's grief is hard. It's devastating. This loss is real. It's impacting us. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to feel that pain, to feel the depression, the mourning, whatever it is. It's okay to not be okay. Remember, we talked about honesty, just angry. We could be angry at God. We could be angry at people. It's okay to not be okay. But it's not okay to stay not okay. We shouldn't stay in that same condition forever. Okay. I remember listening to someone that she was sharing that I think her mom had passed away over 20 something years ago. And she said that it's just like she passed away yesterday and she was still in that same condition. This is a definition of really being stuck. Okay. We shouldn't be the same condition for years and years and years and years. I told you from the very beginning, be honest with you, that grief, we're gonna grieve for our lives. Okay, the impact that they had, that in physical impact in our life, they're not here anymore. We're going to miss them. I still grieve today, my dad, my mom, my friend, others as well too. But the way that we grieve should not be the same forever. Okay, so it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. Let me play this quick video for you. Hopefully,
my mom is deceased in one of the hardest seasons of my life. I grieved too long.
Is that possible?
Oh yeah. Saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost.
Is that possible to grieve too long for mom?
Yep. If you don't get the necessary help. Help is offered, but if you don't go get it, you'll live in it. And this is one of the reasons as a church we started a counseling center. I have a counseling service to help some people because I didn't have anybody to talk to, tell me what I was living in. Every Mother's Day, I had a date with grief. That's too long because no one told me how to come out of that thing. Before Mother's Day come, begin to speak life, begin to resist the enemy, and he'll flee. But I was just, okay, it's Mother's Day. I'm about to give in to this thing. I would dive into grief.
All right.
My mom is deceased.
All right. Hopefully you guys heard that okay. Okay. All right. Hopefully you heard that okay. That was me. My name, Pastor John Hanna. All right. I just looking at the chat. Again, I attempt not to do chat too much because then I'll get caught up into the chat. I'll come back to it at the end. But you guys told my journal, which is great, which is good. Okay, Christine, so you can hear. Okay. That's also known as Tony. As I was watching it, I saw Tony said grief doesn't have a timeline. Absolutely. And grief, as I said before, we're going to grieve for the rest of our lives. All right. It's just the way that it should impact us should not be the same. Okay. Even, and I'll use a scripture probably later on if we get to it, that we've may endure for a night, right? But just as a night, then joy comes in the morning. So there's something, all right, that should even occur. It shouldn't be just weeping. Weeping doesn't say weeping will occur forever and ever and ever and ever. No, weeping occurs for the night, but then joy comes in the morning. So now this man by name Reverend John Hanna, Pastor John Hanna, shows us a couple of different things. One, he's a pastor, and he grieves. All right, he's talking about his grief, and that just shows us, everybody grieves. All right, pastors grieve, bishops grieve, pope grieves, president grieves, vice president, everybody, the superstars, the social media influence, all these, everybody grieves. I grieve. When I'm here, conducting the session today, everybody grieves. So don't feel bad for grieving. I actually spoke about this just the other day that, even when people say like, you got to be strong, it's kind of implying that grief is a weakness, but grief is not. Grief is natural. Even Jesus grieved in the Bible. All right. And he grieved for a variety of reasons. Even as talked about from the beginning, he grieved because people had rejected him. Okay. So it wasn't just from a death, but even the Lord Jesus grieves. So don't feel bad for grieving. This is perfectly normal and natural for us. All right. So that's one thing. Now, he also gave the example where if he, every Mother's Day, because he didn't do anything, remember I said, if you do nothing, then he would just dive back into grief again. And this is just, again, another example that if we don't do anything with our grief, then we're just going to stay there and it can tend to get worse and worse. All right. Now I'm going to move further because.
And one of the hardest.
All right. Now just please bear with me because I'm going to move a little quicker to get through some of these so I can get through as many as I can today because I do want to stop, like I said, on time. So number 2, we have blame and rumination. All right. Now rumination is kind of like that, what if this would have happened or what if that would have happened? And we go through that because we're looking for somewhere to place our blame and maybe even to direct our anger, similar to what I said with my mom. And what I found is that when we have those thoughts, it's really just trapping our mind in an endless loop of pain. All right. It's just because it's like we really can't change the situation or anything, but we still want to get mad at the doctors, get mad at the hospital or the ambulance driver or the person or someone else, whatever situation. When we get into blame, this can actually keep us stuck in grief. And that's why we really developed this 4 Ds to help us to move forward. Remember, determine, decide, develop, and deliver. Those are the 4 Ds. Now, the scripture in Philippians, because as opposed to keeping our minds focused on the pain, and even focus on where we're going to blame, the Bible tells us what we should think on. It says, whatsoever things are true, Philippians 4 verse 8, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever pure, lovely, good reports, any virtue, any praise, think on these things. So it kind of instructs us what we should spend our mind thinking on. Also tells us to meditate on his word. But when we so occupy ourselves with looking for where we want to blame for our anger, for our grief, it just keeps us stuck right there. All right. And it can really amplify our pain when we're just so focused on that. It's making our pain bigger because that's all we direct our attention towards. Okay. I'm going to move ahead because, again, there's so much I could talk on each one of these things, but it gets a lot. So number 3 is isolation and loneliness. Now, this one is a big one. It's an important one because maybe for me this was a natural one to turn into. And I'd be curious to know, anyone on here as well too, how many have found yourselves like a little more isolated since you've been grieving? Like whenever I've had like challenging times in life, whether through grief or even other times as well, I just want to go in my bed, curl up, and just pull the covers up and just be by myself. However, this is the opposite response to what we actually need when we're grieving. And this is what makes our group, our community, even extra special as well. Isolation, loneliness is the opposite response of what we need. How Lord God created us from the very beginning in Genesis chapter 2, he said that it's not good for man to be alone. It's not good for man to be alone. And yes, we can talk about, husband and wife or, marriage in that regards, but it's not just strictly with that. We actually are supposed to be in community. We're supposed to be around other people. We thrive when we're in community, and to back, well, not that scripture needs backing up, but just the scripture says it. But then we even see science has taught too as well. The relationships we have with other people helps to bring us greater fulfillment and satisfaction in life, and how important it is to have a relationship with other people. So we need community, and we actually get some healing through our community. One of the statements that we have here, and this is another one of the key statements that we use, and it's on the one-day worksheet. I know I haven't really referenced this too much, but hopefully you looking back and seeing what's on there as well. Grief shared is grief divided. Grief shared is grief divided. Okay? And this is so very powerful that as we come together and share in grief, even though we may all be grieving, even though, everybody on this webinar is experiencing grief in some way while we're here, but as we share our grief, we're helping to lessen the pain that we feel with our grief by being around others, by being in community. All right. So when we isolate ourselves, we are absorbing all the pain ourselves. We are keeping it all for ourselves. The example, I'll give you two examples. One I would share with my wife shares, if you were moving a table from one side of the room to the other, yeah, maybe you can pick it up yourself and carry it to the other side. But what if you had some other people around you that could take different corners of the table and move it? It gets so much easier because you're all bearing some of the weight yourself. All right. Now, this is, again, even though we may all be grieving, we're all helping each other. I see it even as I see the chat kind of just moving up and forth and just going. The communication is talking like, okay, how can we stay in touch with each other? Because being around other people, even though we're all grieving, is helping each of us for multiple reasons. But I can't get into all that right now. But just this is the principle. It's not good for man to be alone. Think about the funeral time as well, too. Here's an example that I use. The funeral, yes, we're mourning, we're devastated. It's the day or the time of the funeral. But we don't realize at the time, but as we have other people around us, even though they're all grieving, it's less than what's going to occur a couple of days later when people have gone back home and we have less people around us, and now we start to feel the weight of it that much more because we're bearing more of it for ourselves. So it's the same principle at work. Grief shared is grief divided. So again, when we isolate ourselves, and we choose to isolate ourselves, and it could be for a variety of reasons, but we choose to isolate ourselves, we are bearing it all on ourselves and making our grief harder, and that can be keeping us stuck in grief. All right. Again, if you guys have any questions, just asking the question, because once I start the presentation, I'll answer questions as long as the questions are there for. Okay, so there's no time limit on questions. So anything I'm asking that you guys want further clarification on or anything, I'll spend as much time as I need to answer questions afterwards. Another reason we can stay stuck in grief is unhealthy substances. and this is probably the last one I'm going to stop at because it's an hour and 15 right now. But let me, since I've turned to this one, if you guys just bear with me, let me just answer this one or share this one as well. Unhealthy substances. And I put on there, a picture of someone drinking alcohol. And a lot of times people turn to this, and I'm, whether in the church, out of the church, what have you, to be alcohol, drugs, sex, different things, just these unhealthy substances. And when I say sex, just not, husband, wife, or marital sex. I'm just saying, when we turn to these things, all it's doing is masking the real problem. It's masking the real problem because it doesn't make it better and tends to actually make it worse. But I'm going to share with you how this is similar to the isolation problem, because I said isolation was the opposite response because we are taking away that help that we have from community. I see the same thing with the unhealthy substances. That is the opposite response because it's actually dulling or dimming some of the help that Lord God has already created within us. See, our bodies, Psalm 139, as I have on scripture, says, I will praise thee for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So Lord God created us so fantastically, designed us and created us that our bodies can actually heal ourselves from many things that we go through. Okay. And we can think about it on a physical plane. Like if we get a cut on our hand or on our arm, right? What's going to happen? It's going to bleed at first, but then it's going to start to heal. It actually goes through as the body's functioning normally, it's going to go through a healing process, start to form a scab, white blood cells going to come, protect it from infection, things like that. All these natural things that the body will go through to heal itself. Now that's on a physical level. Same thing on this emotional level, even when we deal with hard times in life and grief being one of them, that he has given us some things that can really help us and heal us. And I usually point to our senses. All right. Now, I don't want to go through the slides because it's going to take a lot more time to go through the slides, but our senses. And our senses, the sense that we normally relate to are the five senses is we have, sight, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and then touching. So these are five senses. Now, what they are basically pathways to our brain. They transmit information to our brain. And when we're going through the stress and the pain of grief, our senses can actually help to bring some type of relief and calm to us during that time. So with our sight, what I usually share is that, looking, I enjoy going to Pennsylvania and seeing the mountains and just looking at that scenery. It helps to relax me and to calm me. That's how our sight can work, or even looking at some beautiful painting or artwork. Okay. These kind of things is how our sight can actually help to bring a level of release and relief and calm to us by some things that we see. We have a session, we plan to do another one too, where we had a whole art session where we created art, and it was in reference to grief. But it was amazing how many people experience, not say breakthrough, but they just got a great level of healing just by the art that they were able to create for themselves. So this is our sight. Then we can go into like hearing, and things that we hear. Now, perfect example for many of you, especially those of you who are still on with me right now, the things that we hear can help to encourage us, can help to inspire us, can help to give us some type of hope. So for those of you here, maybe the things you've heard from me today, just speaking to you, just hearing it, made you start to think, you know what? There is some hope for me today. There is some hope for me to not feel this grief like I do for the rest of my life. And that's through what? Through hearing. Okay. So there's things that we can do and exercise that we talk about through hearing, such as like affirmations. Last thing I'll say with taste, because I think a lot of people can relate to this one as we are ending. Taste. All right. There's a whole section of foods called what? Comfort foods. Comfort foods. Okay. Comfort foods. Why are they called comfort foods? Because when we eat these things, I'm not saying they're the most healthiest, but they can bring a level of comfort to us, even when we're experiencing grief and loss. Okay, so those are some of the things. So let me just jump back to the slide here. Why are unhealthy substances the opposite response? Because when we take of the unhealthy substances, what are they doing? They actually are impairing our senses. They're dulling our ability to get some relief and some healing that the Lord God created us with. All right, we don't see once we drink it. You can't. That's people can't drive. You can't see, hear, smell, taste, touch like how you normally would, because these things are taking it away from you and I. Okay, so that's another thing. Keep us stuck in grief, and people do partake of these things looking to get some relief, but it's really keeping them from the help that the Lord God's naturally given to us. And these things are temporary at best, and at worst, they're making things worse. Okay, all right. So I'm done with the presentation because I only got to 4. Hopefully, you guys got something from it, though. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead because I want to get to the questions area. Okay. Yeah. So there's more. Sometimes I get to go through more of it, but sometimes, like I said, there's just so much. I encourage you guys to join. I put in there before, but I want to make sure you do have it. Our Facebook group, because we put stuff in the Facebook group, and okay, let's see. Hold on, it kind of jumped into, because you guys have responses and side things going there, so it jumped into there. So let me put it into the main chat. I think there it is. Okay. Okay, so I put it into the main chat area. All right. Okay, so questions and answers, and hopefully you guys have gotten something from just listening to me today. All right, our Grief to Life coaching program, it's different. Remember, it's based on the 4 Ds: determine, decide, develop, and deliver. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a grief therapist. I'm not a grief counselor. I'm a Grief to Life coaching minister. Okay. So our program is just different. So even if you done things before, we don't. I think the other things are great. They're fantastic, and some people need counseling and therapy. Our coaching model is different because it is helping people to really find ways to move forward. It's really about that forward progression. It's not so much about necessarily like understanding grief and things like that. It's more so, okay, how can we use this grief, the reality of this, to find ways to be motivated to live again. Again, it's not about forgetting about our loved ones at all. It's really about how can we live and still honor their memory, still honor their life in our living. Have clarity, have direction, have purpose, have focus, all right, and health, all these things. All right, so that's what Grief to Life is. I'm going to go into the questions. I put it in the Facebook group. I just encourage you to, I encourage you to join the Facebook group at the very least, okay? I also want to, I'm going to get through all the questions. Just give me a second. I see you. I see some people like putting phone numbers in, which is fine. Okay. But also to join the Facebook group that we have to connect in that regard. I'm going to answer questions. Give me 1 second. I'm going to do a couple more things first. So for those of you here for the first time, and those of you who've been here, more than one time, because I know people have been here for 2, 3, 4 times, multiple. When we have our upcoming sessions, because we have a lot of new people that come on every time, I have to go through the foundational stuff at the beginning. So I know we want to take some things further. A couple of things I'll say with that. One is in the Facebook group. A couple of weeks ago, I did a full 14 days worth, day after day after day, of videos and some things you can do from for each day. And then maybe not daily activities. It could be one day might be a week's worth of something you would do. That's in the Facebook group. Now, Facebook, quite honestly, is kind of funny because even though I posted them day after day, they don't all show up like day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you might have to search for it in the Facebook group once you get into the Facebook group, but it's there. I'll probably also put it into an area that you can, see them specifically, and we have a private backend that you can see all those. That's one thing. Secondly, as we do these sessions, every week I do have to cover the foundational for new people, because we have many new people coming on each week, which is fantastic. But those of you have been and now coming through this first session, we want to do a separate session where my wife and I will join together and be able to, go further into, some of the things you may be dealing with individually or as a group, though. And that will potentially be like a Zoom session. And we would ideally do it the same day, like I'm doing this on a Saturday right now, and maybe an hour. So we have an hour before dedicated just for people who've been there before that want like that extra, next step, and not just keep hearing the primarily the same things over again. So if you want to get notified of the sessions that we're going to be doing, which will very likely be starting within next week or next 2 weeks, I'm going to put a page here that we kind of, my thing keeps jumping into somebody's other chat. Not other chat, but it's a response to someone else. So I think some of the texts have gotten hidden up there. So I'm putting up here. So I just put into the main thing about being notified of upcoming sessions. All right. So I have this page here, griefslife.com. You just click on it, and all right, it's a new page. So once you fill it out and submit it, then you should get onto our list that will get notified for upcoming sessions. Okay, if you have any problems with the page, just send me an email back, because to be quite honest, it's not something that's been tested out fully with this part, but we just want to put it together so we can start capturing people and start putting our group together that will continue on this journey with my wife and I as we go forward. Okay, so again, it'll likely be an hour before we do the main webinar, and then you'd be free to join the next webinar too, because there's something about even being around, even though you hear some of probably most of the same stuff you heard before, but just hearing it again, this scripture says faith comes by hearing. So even you guys hearing it one time may not be enough. You got to hear it over and over. And why hearing is so powerful, as we talked about the senses before, it actually can help to shape even what we believe and how our thoughts and how we're even experiencing grief. So you guys are certainly able to join the one-day webinars again when I come on Saturdays at the normal time. But if you want to be a part of this other group, we'll have one before, then you could just fill that form out. Should be a simple form, and just click submit and we'll have it. Okay. I just saw it. Yeah. Lady M says this is a start. And it's popped up on the Facebook page. It was, it's AI knowing that you were journaling. Okay, well, however it was, the Lord used it to have you here today. All right. So with that said, you have that information. So if you want to be participating in the future sessions that we have, that will take it like a little step further. I would encourage you though, before you, you can fill it out and that's fine. But I shared a lot of things here today. And again, if you just take, one or just a little bit of what I've shared and start to implement it, then that would be great. I'm going to get to the questions. One more thing I want to say before that is the assessment questions and the one-day worksheet that you have. All right. Let me see if I can do this really quickly and show it to you like that. So the one-day worksheet that you have, and you see it on the screen as well. All right, this was, let me see. All right, so grief shared is, if you remember, grief divided. Okay, grief shared is grief divided. We were created to be in community. All right, we weren't supposed to be isolated. The Lord God says it's not good for man to be alone. And then it's saying that we have, it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to stay not okay. And then these were just questions for you to answer for yourself, because this was just for you to reflect on it. And again, you want to give honest answers. Yeah, what has been the hardest part of your grief journey? What, be honest with yourself. This is for you. I've had people send it back to me, but it's not necessarily for me. It's fine if you send it back to me, but that's not. It's for you to be honest and see how your grief is affecting you. You don't. Sometimes we and I'll put it kindly like this, but it's the reality. We kind of lie to ourselves and to others, maybe wanting to be better, and we'll say we're better, but we're not really better. So I just ask for you, for you to be honest with how, what has been the hardest part of your grief journey. All right. And then these are, again, questions for you to answer for yourself. Okay. Ways you can get stuck in grief. Check what feels true for you today. This is all to really help you in as far as being honest and seeing some things for yourself. Now, the last few weeks, and I just kept doing it, we want to do something different and actually give you one of the tools to get started with. And this was the assessment questionnaire. Now, this is for you to fill out, again, for you, but it helps to organize. These are different ways. There's 5 different areas on this form that your grief can be affecting you, as far as your emotional well-being. All right. Then we also have your physical health. Okay. It can affect us physically. We talked about social connection. Remember, we talked about having disconnection from other people. Then the mental and cognitive health. And then lastly, we have our purpose and meaning, which is, I think we touched on that a bit today as well. But there's a couple of questions in each of the sections, and they're mostly yes or no answers. You can be longer if you like, but again, this is also for you to start to determine, like, how is your grief impacting you? And it may be impacting you in all the areas, but there's going to be, maybe one that's going to stick out more to you that you would then, look to pay more attention to. All right. So I'm not going through all these questions. Again, I've done it before. It's probably in the Facebook group as well. And, these are the kind of things that we can bring up and talk about if you join us for the other sessions as well. Okay, as you start to do some of these things. But I just want to go over this. So you have these questions to answer, and just gives you a little, like a starting point or a map to see where you're starting from, how your grief is impacting you. And there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. We just look for an honest answer. Okay. So let me get back to questions. All right. I think we're good with everything. I thought I saw somebody ask where to get the assessment questions. I'm going to see if I can put it here again in the chat. The assessment questions I'm putting in the chat, and then also the one-day worksheet. Okay, so you should see it in the chat area somewhere. And asking where the form is, let me put the form to be notified of upcoming sessions. Okay, so I just put that in. You should see that at the bottom to be notified of upcoming sessions, and you just click on it, and it says grief to life. Yeah. Okay. Be notified of upcoming sessions. I just put it in. If you have to scroll to the bottom, then you can see it there. So I'm still learning this stuff. Pretty interesting. So it says that I can pin the message. So maybe I'll put it to the top. I'll see if I do that. No, because I have other stuff in this as well too. All right, just scroll to the bottom and you can see it on the bottom part. Okay, and if you need it again, so I just put it in there again. Elise, I see you're putting it. Hopefully you guys, has anybody been able to see the form? Yes. Okay, Carol, thank you. JJ said can't find it. Okay, but I received it via email. Dorothy says it was filled out. No form, just link to sign up. Okay, that's what blanket. Thank you. So it's a link to sign up. That's a link to sign up. Okay, I'm putting it there. When it says be notified of upcoming sessions. Okay, now I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get to the questions. Just want to make sure everyone's kind of good with what they have. I'm gonna put the one-day worksheet and the assessment questions as a link as well too. Okay, Bernadette, you just joined. Okay. Hold on 1 second. Okay. Well, welcome, Bernadette. I'm just giving some of the resources that we have made available for you. You would have gotten some in your email, but we are about an hour and a half into this already. So you'll get a replay. This is for everyone else. You'll get a replay of this video, which you'll, usually the replays are good for about 48 hours. All right. All right, so I put the assessment questions and the worksheets. Those are forms. When we say forms, they're in the chat. The sign-up link for those of you, hold on a second. The sign-up link for those of you who want to be notified of upcoming sessions is, I'm going to put it right here as well. All right, I'm going to go to questions right after this. Okay. Christine says, where can we get the book? I'm kind of jumping. Okay. This is the ebook. You can also get a physical book if you wanted to. All right. Now let me go to questions now. I'll come back as well through the chat. For those of you who want to, if you have stuff in the chat, I will come back through. But I told everyone I'll do the questions. So I want to go through the questions. Any questions you guys have, put them into the question area. And as I scroll through, once I get to the end of the questions, then I'm going to just strictly deal with the chat. So if I finish all the questions and you guys still have questions, just put it into the chat area. Okay, so now in the questions, so I know some of these are not questions. They were where people are coming from, Spring, Texas. I see Tina. Okay, thank you, Kathleen, for helping out. Tiana, the chat is on the bubble on the right. Priscilla, yes, you are automatically muted. Webinars basically is that what it is. And that's, we do Zooms, but Zooms give us less, there can be a lot of interaction with that. So when I'm just doing webinars, I just do webinars because it's easier to control, so to say, in that regard. So we could just, keep progressing. Because you see there's a lot of information, a lot of stuff to share. And I attempt to get through all of it, but even just with that, I usually run out of some time as well. So Zooms give us an opportunity to engage a little bit more. And that's why, like, after you've done the webinar, we'd like to connect with you on some webinars, but then also, Zoom as well, too, so we can talk to each other. We can maybe see each other as well, for those who are comfortable. If you'd like to still be part of Zooms, you're not forced to put on your cameras. You're not forced to unmute yourself. Even on this session, I normally say this as well. Even if you haven't put anything in the chat, you haven't responded to any questions or anything, you're just sitting here listening, you still benefit by being here. However, the more that you actually can participate, it's just another level of, I would say, healing that occurs, even as you start to engage with the community and realize that you're not by yourself in this experience, because so often grief can leave us feeling so lonely. Okay, but to realize that you're not by yourself in this, and we're all grieving. Our grief is a personal journey. It's personal. How you grieve is going to be personal, but it doesn't have to be a lonely one. Okay. All right. Okay, Michael Saul says, when others reject and say the deceased will want this or that for me. Okay, so I'm not, I see a question mark there. I'm not quite sure exactly the question with that. I'll see if I can answer what I can answer from it. And then if you want to clarify a little more, you can put it like later on in the questions and I'll go through further. So when others reject and say the deceased will want this or that for me. And Yeah, I think for the most part, when we have our community and people around us, our loved ones, our family, friends, and so forth, in that regards, they are attempting to help us or want to help us, but maybe just don't know the right way to help us. Is grief is very special and unique. Unless you like really been through grief and experienced it in that way, it's very hard to help other people that are grieving. Okay. So sometimes people just don't know exactly what to say to help us as we're grieving. And as we're here and just can kind of realize and recognize that, I think, um, it gives us a little bit of understanding of their intent, even though they may not say the right things. Like when I hear people say, you got to be strong or things like that, I believe their intent is great. They want us to be better, but they just don't necessarily know the right words to say to do that. So now in your case, you said that the deceased will want this or that for me. So I mean that's hard um, to say in that regards because the relationship that you had with your loved one is unique. So it's like it's not that someone else was in that relationship with you and them. But again, I still think that they're attempting to say something to help to motivate, maybe to encourage you with your grief as well. Okay. All right. Uh, okay. John says he's been having dreams about his deceased mother, about a month after her death. Okay. Um, Sandra says there's no such thing as leaving grief. Okay. Thank you. Those and these are all uh, they're not all questions, so I'm not necessarily answering those questions. But like John talked about having dreams about his mother after death. Many people have dreams about loved ones after they're not here anymore. Um, and there's no like, as I said, grief is so unique. So it's not like okay, everyone should have a dream about their loved one when they are not here more anymore, or no one should have a dream about the loved one not here anymore. It's just the reality. Some of us have dreams, some of us don't have dreams. So it's a part of our grief as well. Okay. Um, there's no such thing as leaving grief. As I said before, we will have grief for our life. It's just because the impact in our life is it's real and it's not here. They're not physically here with us anymore. So we will grieve for the rest of our life. It's just how it impacts us and how it affects us should not be the same for the rest of our life. And so often, so many people I've heard, they just have stayed stuck at that same place. And no, they're that the way we grieve our loved ones should um, change over time. And I would say this too: is that there's so many things that we can learn through grief as well too, so that we can live even better. And I'll say better in regards to like with greater purpose, greater motivation, appreciating life even that much more as well too. The life that Lord God has given to us. So there's so many lessons that we can learn through grief, and lessons that we learn from our loved ones. Similar to I shared the statement that my dad taught me. Things like that. I encourage. Our loved ones taught us some things, and when we can actually share some of the lessons that they taught us with other people, in a way, this is how we can make their life still matter. In a sense, it still matters to us, but just still having positive impact on other people. When we share some of these life lessons they taught us, share some of the things that they were able to do, and some of the things they inspired us to do, their life is still having an impact even today on other people, and it could be through us. Okay. Okay, Cheryl says, it's been 3 months since my mom passing, and we had our first engagement with the family. I couldn't make it. Instead, I took a solo trip with my daughter. Did I do the right thing? Okay. All right. So, Cheryl, when I say community is important. All right. Community is important. The Lord God didn't create us to be by ourselves, not for us to be alone. But it doesn't mean that you always have to be around other people. It's just that there's something that we get by being around other people at times that can help to restore and to replenish and to rejuvenate us. I think it's perfectly fine if you went took a trip with your daughter, because you wasn't even really by yourself. You were with your daughter. And then, there's times you'll come together with other people, and there's times that, you'll be, um, with maybe less people or by yourself. But don't just always be isolated. And a lot of people just totally isolate themselves. And because I don't relate to these people anymore, because, such and such isn't around anymore, or it just feels awkward when I'm there, and they just are all by themselves. And that's not how, we're supposed to be. Yeah. Okay. So there's times that we will be in around others in community, and there's times when we'll be by ourselves. Like even when I share about this grief to life community and what the Lord God has created, even in the Facebook group and the community we're able to put together, it's not that you have to be, on a webinar, 24/7, or you have to be in community on Facebook all the time. No, we all have our lives to live, but when we come together in community, right, and we can share, we can encourage, whether it's on a webinar, it's on a Zoom, or in the Facebook group, what have you, it's like almost like filling our gas tank, because then we can get some support, some encouragement, that then now we can go out into our normal activities and maybe by ourselves at times, and we can function that much better. So we come together in community to get that recharge, and the right community. And I'm not saying that every community isn't necessarily the right community. That's another conversation though. But you come together in the right community, you get that recharge, and now you can go back out and function in life and go through things like that. Okay, hopefully that helps. Okay, so Victoria says, how do you handle complex grief and trauma with multiple close family losses every year for 10 years? And Victoria, I'm sorry for the multiple losses that you've experienced for these, for these years. As I was sharing earlier, and we can have grief, first time, and then next time it comes, the next time, and next time, and it keeps building up as well. So it's the same process that we kind of go through. It's just you can't, because it's multiple things. It's not like you just fix one and you fix all. They're all individually unique. So you really have to take them like one at a time. Like first, starting off with the questionnaire or the determine stage. As a combination of all these griefs that you may have experienced, how is it impacting you overall right now? Answering these questions in the determined stage. How is your grief impacting you? Maybe from one experience of loss, it may have just been experience affecting you physically, or primarily affecting you physically. But then when you had a second one, then it could have been physically, and then also your purpose and meaning or something like that. So it's like a blend of all these different things going together. The way to now address it again is to see, as a result of all these losses that have built up, how is this impacting you, Victoria, in your life presently right now, and then taking that steps to go forward. And then what you may find after we go through the determine, decide, develop, deliver, and you might start to get some improvement in whether it's the social connections, then it's not that it's over. Remember, grief, as we've shared before, it's not that it's you've solved the grief problem, but once you've maybe gotten some improvement in one particular area, then you might start again and say, okay, well now let me do this questionnaire again. Now, how is my grief impacting me? And next time we do it, maybe it's impacting you differently or stronger in another area, and then work through that particular area. So it definitely is a journey. That's why community is important, to keep us encouraged, to keep us on track. It's not a 2-hour webinar or however long to be in one session. It's not even really a counseling or therapy group of sessions that you may go to. It really is a journey. But as we kind of go through it, you learn how to progress through and then continue on with life as well. Okay. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Victoria. Okay, Yolanda says journaling can be a double-edged sword. Okay. If you could explain, like, I would love to hear your experience with journaling. All right, because I know some people are they've journaled and they love journaling. Some people are opposed to journaling, but I'd love to hear like how you see the journaling aspect of it. Okay. So someone else came on and said journaling actually makes me cry and think about him more and is emotional. Not good for me. Sorry. Okay. So which thank you for sharing that. And again, it's about being honest in your answers. So journaling is one thing that we share, and we've had a lot of people that have benefited from journaling. But again, it's not for everyone. You don't have to journaling if it's too painful for you in reference to journaling. But you said that it makes you cry and think about it more and get emotional. So it's not for you. Okay. And I understand that. Like our program, again, it's not about forcing or saying that this is the route, this is the way. It's about presenting, like, I'll say it, options or different ways that you can go about doing this as well. Okay. So thank you for your honesty and sharing. And then Lynn says she journaled but never kept it up. Okay. Okay. Yolanda says that's why I say it's a double-edged sword. It can break me. I think you may be responding similar to what M had said about making you cry and think about your loved one and emotional. So even with that saying, so crying in itself is not bad. Okay. Crying is part of the process we go through. Some people say it's like a cleansing or so forth, but crying is a part of this grief journey that we're on. So if you journal, and just because we may cry or get emotional, it doesn't relate to failure. I'm just putting like this, and this is just how I'm kind of like being directed to answer. And maybe it's for you, it's for someone else, but crying doesn't relate to failure. Okay, it's natural, and it's fine to cry, and sometimes crying can actually be more helpful than not helpful. Okay, so if journaling is actually helping you to get some of your emotions out and to cry, then that may be a good thing in that sense. Remember, I shared with you there are two people in the same group, and one person, she was bottling her emotions up, and she wanted to be able to cry. So, the crying part is again, it's not failure. It's not a weakness because we're crying. All right. Every once in a while, when I think about my dad, my mom, friend as well, I still can tear up at times. All right. And for me, and as I share it, usually it's not that as I go through and as we have this grief to life program and help so many people that are grieving, that we don't cry or anything like that, or we just go through life and everything's all good. No, we have moments where we're gonna cry. We have those days that we might just feel a little bit more than others, but we don't stay in those days for a long period of time, and we can quickly bounce, or quicker to bounce back into our life and moving forward in life. Okay. Okay, so Donna says, how do I deal with worrying about someone reading my journal entries, which I want to keep private? I don't journal for this reason. I mean, that's an interesting, and that, again, when I answer these questions, I give answers as I feel led to give the answers for you. So, someone that's looking to read your journal and to invade your quote unquote privacy, those aren't the, I don't those are not the right people that you let's say, I mean, some of them might be a family member. I'm saying not to, you can be just eliminate your family members, but just realize that those aren't the people that are going to help you, maybe in the long run. I'll put it like that. Okay. Um, you want to have people that can respect you and your privacy, your space, your feelings, your emotions. And if you let them know that this is your private thoughts, they should respect that part as well. Make it clear to them that you don't want them to read it. All right. And then if you have obviously, some kind of a special place you can put it away, then you put it away in that regards and, hide it from them. But again, I'm just more thinking of the type of person that would read someone else's journal that is not that you've made it clear to them that you don't want them to read it. You know, part of challenges that we've had with grief is sometimes we don't communicate and express what we want and maybe what we don't want and share with others, and just maybe expect or think that people will understand or will know. So in this case, I would say that you just make sure whoever it is that may be in your house, I don't know if you share a room or something like that with someone else, just express that this is private, this is not for anyone else's eyes, and you'd appreciate that they do not violate your privacy in reading your journal. Okay, because there's so many benefits of journaling. So, but then being able to be honest and transparent is where you get the benefits from anyway. So you want to make sure it's in a place that you can have that. Okay. What do you do when you don't even know how to start the grieving process? I lost my dad just over 5 years ago, and he's my best friend. Still doesn't seem real and hasn't fully hit me still. All right. So Victoria, thank you for sharing. And we kind of started maybe probably after you put this question in, that the 4 steps process. And let me answer how you're saying it first. How to start the grieving process. I mean, you're in the grieving process. However you're grieving is how you're grieving. Okay. There's no, this is the first step, this is second step, this is third step. Because you can bounce around. I know they have different stages of grief and so forth, but they're not like 1, 2, 3, 4. Because today you could be a 4, and tomorrow you could be a 2. You could be on stage 2. So you're in the grieving process, and however you're grieving is how you're grieving. But as far as the moving forward part, starting to know where we are and how is it impacting us, and through that questionnaire, the determine stage is one of the first ways that we share, and that's what we provided to you in this session here. Lynn, how do you deal with grief over things you can't do as a couple ever again? Lost her husband 2 weeks ago after being in hospital since October. He was getting better, talking about coming home and things we were going to do. All right. Thank you so much for sharing, Lynn. Sorry about your husband. And so often, especially, spouses, that we can feel like we've lost a sense of purpose because our purposes are so closely tied together with, our husband or our wife or what have you. And you asked about deal with grief over things you can't do as a couple ever again. I mean, this is a reality as a husband and wife couple. There's things that you can't do as a couple any longer. However, I would say this, that the Lord still has a plan and a purpose for you. All right. And it's not to totally, exclude the impact of your husband in your life, but the Lord has a purpose for Lynn. Right. And it's looking to develop and discover that for, why the Lord still has you here for something. And maybe it's even still fulfilling and completing some things that you and your husband were doing together, but now that he's no longer here, there's still some things that you can do and complete and do. Okay. There's one person in our community that had planned a trip with her husband. I think it was like around the country in a RV. and her husband passed, and she took some time, but then she still went ahead and did the trip. And I mean, her trip, she was sharing some of the stories with it, because this was over a couple of months time. She was sharing some of the stories, and it was a tremendous trip, and she learned a lot of really great lessons. But not only did she learn lessons for herself, but she had impact on other people during her trip, and it was a result of the grief that she experienced, but then also what she was able to share with other people and things that she was able to do. So it was still, there's still things left for us to do, even though our loved ones aren't here. And this is part of what we go through in the program, is helping people to still see the purpose that the Lord has for their life, even though their loved ones aren't here any longer. Okay. Own Guyan, same questions above. I lost my sister and best friend 2 weeks ago. We were always together, but now I'm by myself. Cry every day for missing her so much. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. And you said same question as above, and it's a similar answer as you lost your sister, and sorry to hear about your sister, and it's so short. 2 weeks ago is still just really new. For you, the same answer as I say for Lynn, but you give ourselves time, and we give ourselves grace to grieve. There's no rush to push through and to push ahead. Even though our program is about moving forward, definitely about moving forward, but it's not a rush to take huge steps or to take things. It's your pace. This is, I don't tell you, my wife doesn't tell you, no one in the group rate tells you, okay, you should be this far along, this should be no, it's at the pace that's comfortable for you. We just encourage for really even small steps, that you take some small steps. And that small step could be something as, something simple to do for you, such as, taking, gathering pictures together, or so, something that's meaningful for you, organizing pictures, or, clearing a section of a room or something like that. So, okay. So the same answer I would say in regards to the Lord still has a purpose for you, and, don't feel rushed to go through, because as we're grieving, and even though we all have and through the program we encourage like having some kind of a better place and goal, so to say, and we have that in place. The journey is so very important, and almost as important as the goal itself. How we get there is developing us, and the Lord is using it to teach us and to develop us and to, in a way, shape us. So embrace the journey as well, and even the pain that we go through, the mourning, the devastation, and all the experiences that we have. The Lord is using that to shape us into who He needs us to be as well. Okay, so none of us should feel like rushed, and this program isn't about rushing anyone through. It's about giving some direction, some guidance, some support, some encouragement in the community. Okay, Tina says, I'm afraid that if I get better or stop wearing black color, I will forget him. Tina, thank you so much for sharing. And that's something that is, I think, important for a lot of people, that we want to live and move forward in life, but it's not about forgetting our loved ones. Right? I shared that earlier as well, too. It's definitely, as we encourage people to move forward, it's not about forgetting them, but it's about how can we find ways to move forward in life while we're still honoring their life, right? And I shared a couple of ways before, whether it's fulfilling, some of the things that they were looking to do, or some things that they would have wanted for us to do. We know they kept saying to us for us to do it. So I'm going to say this again as I answer these questions, and just everyone is here, just hopefully sense my heart with the answer to the questions. I'm just, wearing the color black and is not the only way, to honor him and or in that regard. So if you can honor him through your living, that can be a lot more impactful. And not just for you, Tina. I'm saying this for you because you're here, but also for others that you have in your circle, in your community as well. You living and like we talk about, maybe sharing some of the lessons that he taught you, sharing some lessons that you learned even through your grief experience, sharing some of um, things that you've gotten from him. This can have a great impact for you and help you, and also help others as well. And okay. So wearing what you're wearing, yes, it maybe help you to remember him, but as far as honoring him, I like every day when I come on here, and every week when I do these sessions, I'm honoring their memory by talking about them, by sharing about them. I don't have to. I have the pictures I show you on there as well too. But all these ways are ways that we can honor their life and honor their memory, and can have a great impact. Okay. Hopefully that helps, Tina. Hopefully, you guys again, even as I'm answering one person's question, others that are on here maybe can relate to some of the things that are being asked, and hopefully getting some answers from this as well. I lost my daughter suddenly 3 months ago. She was my best friend. 144 F44. I don't know how to go on without her. I feel guilty that I could have done something. Sorry for your loss, Linda. Did I miss something? She was always so in tune with me, and maybe I wasn't. I am mad at God and the hospital and myself. I'm lonely, even though I'm not alone. I live with my son-in-law and 3 grandkids and try to feel strong for them. Okay, so Linda, thank you so much for sharing, and honesty and everything that you're saying as well too. And the honesty part for all of us that are here is a big part, because that's where we can see where we're at and where we where we're starting from. So I thank you for sharing. There's a lot that you're saying in here as well. It looks like the rumination aspect of thinking about what could have been, if you missed something, and going along those lines. I don't know if you asked this during time we're talking about the rumination, because rumination, it keeps us like looped in that endless, or locked in an endless loop of pain, just thinking over and over again if there was something else that could have been done differently. And I gave that scripture before, Philippians chapter 4 verse 8, just talking about like what we should or could spend our mind thinking about instead of that rumination. Because when we ruminate, it's not directly changing anything, it's just keeping us at that same space and at that same place, and preventing us from moving forward. You say that you're mad at God and in the hospital and yourself, and it just keeps us stuck there. Now, the angry part with God, and I understand why a lot of people say that they are angry with God, because for the most part we say God controls everything, and we then blame him for everything. But it's not 100% accurate in that regard, because as I've shared it before, not today, but God's idea for us when he created us was not for death, or it wasn't his plan for sin. It was really the result of man's actions, which results in death and loss and grief at this point as well. So that was never his intention or his plan for us. I'm not saying he didn't know what would occur, but that was due to man's actions. So when we grieve, instead of necessarily looking and being angry with God, and as if it's his fault. It's more so that we are joining him in anger because he's angry at death. He's he was angry at death. He was angry at sin and what brought death into play. And that's why he went through that whole process of coming down in the form of flesh of Jesus, Yeshua Christ, and dying on the cross for us. So we, in a sense, we join him in anger. As opposed to being angry with him, we're actually joining him in anger because he's angry at death. Okay. And you talked about being lonely. Even though you're not alone, you have your son-in-law and 3 grandkids. And so that community aspect, I stated before that not every community is, and I said the right community, and I don't, in your situation, I'm not saying it like that, but not every community is going to give us the support and the encouragement that we need. Okay. It's not just being around anybody. It's being around people who can understand grief. Maybe not our grief because our grief is personal, but being around other people that can understand grief overall. So a community like that can support us, that can encourage us. And how I like to, even as I like direct the community or organize it, be honest, even in our help and our approach to people that are grieving. Because yes, we can say some things, we want other people to maybe be more sensitive to us, to, understand what we're going through. But then how I like to do it as well, there's certain things that we can do too. For instance, I spoke before about, us communicating with other people and not just assuming or expecting that they should know what we're going through. And, just coming from that point of view that I'm grieving, we're grieving, and there's a part of this group where we are also being honest in our encouragement. And it's not just, okay, it's all about what other people need to do for us, but there's stuff that we can do as well. Just the saying I said, time alone doesn't heal all wounds. It also takes effort. There's things that we can do, and holding people, quote unquote, accountable in that sense to do that. So the community that we have is important, a community that can understand grief, even though it's personal, but can support us in the way that we need to be supported because they've understood grief to an extent. And then the last part I'll say with yours, because you had a lot of stuff in there, but when you say you try to be strong for them, and I have a lot of responsibilities as a husband, as a father, 9 children, grandfather, also responsibility in my business and in ministry as well. And I always related, being strong is the one that, just bears all the responsibility and just, make sure that everything is done. But to help other people too. But I've learned a great lesson from just being like when we go on an airplane and they give you the emergency warning message at the beginning. And they say, like, if there's an emergency and the mask drops down, before you look to take care of other people, you have to take care of yourself first. You have to put the mask on yourself first. And once you do that, then you are better able to help other people. So why I say that is that, being strong for other people, which I've also definitely felt that responsibility as well too. I realized that I had to take care of myself first in many areas to be able to be better equipped to take care of others. So if it's dealing with grief and dealing with, how this grief is impacting me, address your grief first and, be real, be honest with, what you're going through and, get some help with grief. And then you'll be able to, be stronger for your son-in-law and your grandkids. Okay. All right. Hopefully that helped you, Linda. All right. So James goes with, what's the reason why we are born and then we die? My mother passed away February 10th, And that's my question that he keeps asking himself. So, like, really, what's the? I mean, this is like the big question, like, what is the point of life? So to say, I would kind of just maybe sum it up into that big part right there. Why do we born? Why are we born, and then we have to die? Um, I mean, this is the question of, I think, of the ages, and sometimes, and I've heard other people, and I've spoken to other people as well too, especially when we go through grief and loss. And this is just how I'm going to answer your question in this regard, 'cause I think this is more suited to what you're asking. Um, when we go through grief and loss, uh, I remember one person in particular that had said, they didn't want to form new relationships with other people because, what's the point? Because they're gonna die, and then you're gonna have to go through grief all over again, and you're gonna have to experience that pain of grief. So they were really looking to limit the amount of relationships that they had, so they can limit how much exposure to grief that they had as well too. One saying that I know maybe many of you have heard already, that I think grief is the price that we pay for love. Meaning that, if we have to go through grief as a result of loving someone deeply enough, then this is us paying it, like on the back end. That's a saying that I've heard that. I understand where it's coming from with that, but I just figured I'd share that part right there. I don't necessarily go fully with that statement as well, but when we actually experience grief and loss, and I would say even suffering, again, this kind of goes into. I'm going to share you from a scripture in Hebrews that I usually refer back to. Like, why do we have to go through the sufferings and things we go through like that? In the book of Hebrews, it talks. There's one particular scripture that says, this is talking about Jesus, Yeshua. It says, "Learned he obedience from the things that he suffered." Okay, learned he obedience from the things that he suffered. That's that portion of the scripture, and it's not so much about the suffering and why we go through suffering, but just to see that Jesus was actually able to learn something through the suffering. I believe that the Lord can still teach us something, even though we go through suffering, and that's part of the reason why we go through the suffering and the trials that we go through, is because it's teaching us something, it's developing us, it's making us into who we are to be. Okay, so again, it's not so much what he learned obedience to suffering, but just that he learned. And even as we go through that in life, and we go through life, and then we go through death, and we go through the suffering of grief, there's something that we can learn and become better in that regards as a result of it. There's another story I would say in Genesis, a man by the name of Joseph, and many people know the story, but I'm related in reference to grief right now. That he had many brothers. He was Joseph, and they ended up throwing him into a pit, despising him and throwing him into a pit to really be left for dead. But then he ended up being into prison, and he went through a lot of these different trials and sufferings in life. And later on, Lord brought him and did some powerful things to him, saved everyone. But he came to a realization that what was meant for evil, the Lord was able to turn it around for good. So he didn't understand at the time why he went through all these things. However, the Lord used all the stuff that he went through and was still able to turn it around for the good, and not just him, but for the good of everyone else that was there. Really, he saved Egypt and all of his people as well. So while we don't understand, why we go through suffering, just like even like your question there, why are we born? Why do we die? We don't understand all this, but yet the Lord is still faithful and can use that for our good. So the sufferings that we go through can still be used to benefit ourselves and others, as Joseph, as an example. Okay. All right. Paula says, are we able to volunteer for service? All right. Well, thank you, Paula. Would love to speak to anyone further, especially, I said, we're having a couple of sessions coming up in this year. We're going to be in Houston. We're doing something in Houston in May, looking for, even some people in that area of Houston that might be willing to kind of spearhead some of the stuff over that side as well. Be it like a boots on the ground kind of thing. Also, even these, and then we're also going to be in Florida area as well later in the year. So you're definitely looking to have different spaces that we can come into in-person sessions. Also, if those of you that want to become Grief to Life coaches, our program it's a ministry. So it's not like you just come log on and you within a day then you become a minister. It's really a ministry. So we have a steps to go through in reference to becoming a Grief to Life coaching minister. But one of the first ones that we have is to go through a program that lets you become a licensed funeral officiant. All right, that's like one of the first steps, because grief doesn't just begin after the funeral. Once a person has died, grief for the family begins then. So we want to even start and have that initial training that you're able to minister to a family from even, that point of that death occurred. Okay. And then just not to say that you have to, conduct funerals, what have you, but just to have that knowledge of how to do this is important, because really that grief support is necessary as soon as a person has died. Okay. Okay. Is this an ongoing group? Continuous connection if wanted or needed. I gave you the link for that in the chat area. Okay. So you guys have the link already in there. I'm still in the questions area, so I'm going to go to this. How to handle untangible grief like loss of childhood due to abuse. All right, so A is the name there. So remember we talked about grief, that it's not just about death, but we've had loss, because grief is really a result of like separation and the pain that we feel due to the separation. So like I said, childhood, like your childhood due to abuse or like divorce or other areas as well too. Loss of dreams, someone has shared with us before as well too. It's a very similar process as I shared from the beginning. Grief is still grief. All right, we don't compare grief and say, well, okay, this grief is harder than this grief. That's not the right way, because grief is grief, and for the person that's experiencing grief, whatever reason, then it is real, it is devastating, it is traumatic, and it can keep us stuck. So the same steps that we take through in our grief program, the 4 Ds, determine, decide, develop, deliver, is the same 4 steps we would take with grief overall, period. Determine how grief is impacting you, whatever type of grief you may be experiencing. How is it impacting you? Where's your starting point? Decide what does it mean to look better for you? Because this is determine, decide, what it means to look better for you. Develop a plan to move forward in life and develop the tools, and to deliver, have the accountability to support the group that encourages us. All right, what I was saying in between, I just didn't want to stop that thought, was our program, it's not a grief coaching ministry. It's intentionally with our name, it's Grief to Life coaching. Okay, so we start off because we are grieving for some point, but then we move into living life and going through life coaching. So again, whether you're grieving for, it doesn't matter which type of grief you may be experiencing, we help to move you towards life and then coaching in that regards. All right. Carol says, I want to move forward from the guilt. My beloved teenage son died by suicide. All right, Carol, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry about your son. Thanks for being here and for opening up and sharing with us even on this platform as well. It's some of the things that we shared before. I would encourage you to the journaling is good. Answering the questions, but I would say even the journaling, because the situation surrounding your son's death, there may be a lot more to write out than it would be just from answering the questionnaire as well, and maybe other things you want to be able to express. Questionnaire is definitely good to do, but I would encourage to do some journaling and just to get your thoughts out there, your honest thoughts of everything that's going on, and start to put that onto paper as well. Okay, and then these are parts of the starting point for you. Okay, it's part of the starting point for you, and to see how is your son's death impacting you, and the reasoning behind his death. How is this impacting you in your life, and your ability to live and to move forward, and then taking it from there. Because just because another person may have a son that died as well too, but everyone's grief is going to impact us uniquely and individually. So it's still starting at the same point of seeing how is your grief impacting you personally. Okay. And then I don't know if there's other people in your household as well. And for those of you that's on here as well, you may have other people in your household. When you're on here, I can speak to you, and I'm more so speaking to you directly. If you have other people in your household, I encourage you to bring them on with you to share. If have them come to the one-day webinar first, maybe to get the introduction, but bring them on to share as well, to learn and to see, because everyone in a household is processing grief differently. So just by one person being on doesn't necessarily mean that everyone else is going to, because how it's impacting them, especially children in the household, what have you, how it's impacting them is going to be different. So bring them on as well, so they can start to learn and hopefully see some things for themselves and start to see how it's impacting them. Okay, so Carol, hopefully that helped you a little bit. Just get started. Take some of these steps. Okay. All right. So Lisa said, I want to be on Zoom. Where's the form? Where's the form? Done everything. Can't find it. I don't see it. Just joined. I'm confused. I think there's a Zoom meeting link on the Facebook page. So I didn't give any Zoom meeting link. I think, okay, this is all Elise, I think, right? Okay. All right. So Dorothy then gets to this question: how do I get over my guilt? How do I get over my guilt? So I'm gonna start with some of the things that we shared before. These steps and these procedures that we start off with, it does help through a variety of different ways, and different experiences that we have with grief. Really, determining and seeing, like, okay, what are we feeling guilty over, or how's this impacting you that you're feeling guilt over it? So the journaling is good for that as well. Okay, just getting all your thoughts out there, because sometimes we're being affected by grief, but we don't even really know why, and we haven't been able to reflect enough to understand why, and we just know that we're feeling pain. I mean, we ask this question sometimes, and people answer, I don't know, I just feel pain, and I just feel the weight. But that's why this determined stage also is important, because it gives us an opportunity to reflect and start to see, how is it and where is it actually? Not just it's painful, but it's because of such and such. And this is where I'm feeling it. Okay, so doing the questions and the journaling would be important also for you as well. Anyone really just starting out, it's a great starting place for us to get to. Um, okay, so even with guilt, because then to understand like why are you feeling guilt in what area? Okay, all right. Um, Sheila says, when will you have the in-person conference in May? 1 second. It's, I believe it's May 1st to 3rd. Um, it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the first weekend in May. All right. And that was scheduled for Houston, Texas. So we'll give you more information on that as well. Okay. I don't know what area you're in, Sheila, but yeah, it'll be 3 days. All right. So, Blanca, why people keep saying that if grief is so unique, so is life, so is love, so is giving birth, so is raising children, so are our bodies, our illnesses, yet there are advices on how to. Nobody says your love is unique or your illness is unique. Saying grief is unique is not an answer. Okay. Let me see if I can understand what you're saying with this. So why are people saying that if why are people saying that if grief is so unique? Okay, it sounds like you responded to something I might have said earlier, so I'm just attempting to get to where it was. Why people keep saying that if grief is so unique? So life is unique, love is unique, giving birth, raising children. Saying grief is unique is not an answer. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm sorry, like I don't really understand where you're responding to. It might be something I said or something that was said in the chat. If you can give a little more clarification, just put it in the chat, and I'll definitely look to answer as best as I can with it. Okay, so grief, from my standpoint, grief is unique in that grief is personal. How we grieve is going to be personal. So the way I grieve is going to be different than the way my wife grieves, all right, and the way then my children grieve. So like as I was just sharing with someone before in the family and stuff like that, everyone is dealing with their grief uniquely. Even though let's say one person in the family died, but the relationships that we had with that person are all different. So it makes the experience that we're going to have with grief different. Also each person is different. Remember, like my mom and my dad, they both died. I'm the same person, but my grief was unique within myself because I had a different relationship with them. So that's how I reference to grief being unique, and it's personal. It's a unique experience. Each time we have it is going to be different, and every person that's why I find it challenging when other people will kind of maybe put you down a path. Okay, this is how you move through grief, or um, this is the stage that you're going to go through grief, because they're so grief in itself is so random how it can appear to us. All right, so we don't tell you how to grieve. We just help you to move through it, and your pace in your direction, in your way. So that's how we use it and say grief is unique. All right, but if you can give a little more clarification, if I didn't answer it, then please. Okay, thank you so much, Blanca. Lisa, I need the link to join a Zoom meeting for future when you and your wife hosted my email address. Okay, so thank you, put the email address, but hopefully you was able to sign up on that link that I sent before. God created anger. Okay, so Blanca, this is you. Okay, so God created anger and death. So how can he be angry at his own creation? He has the power to change it, doesn't he? Okay, nice, good question. All right, so from the beginning, in the garden, he created man and he created woman, but he said to the man that if you eat this tree, then you'll surely die. So the death was really a result of man's actions of partaking of the tree and what we call it the original sin. All right. So in God's creation, there was not uh, there was not death at that point. It's really a result of what man did that brought about death. And that's why after Genesis chapter 3, we see the plan in place that God has a redemption for all of mankind. So all throughout really the rest of the Bible, we're reading about God's plan to save man through Jesus Christ being born and what he was able to do and taking on that penalty of sin, uh, so that we may have what? Eternal life because of what God did. So God, when I say God was angry at death, that was not God. Death wasn't God's plan. It was a result of man's actions that um, death came into play. Okay. So when I say like rejoining him, yeah, we're joining him in when like we now say, oh, I'm angry at God because my loved one died. God was angry because death was there, and he, just like I say with us, he did something about it. He came, he died, he experienced death, undeservingly, because a lot of times we think about death, and a lot of times we grieve and we're upset with God, and we're saying like, okay, this person, quote unquote, they shouldn't have died. This is not right. This is not fair. This was not, quote unquote, deserved, and maybe, but this is what Jesus did for us. I mean, we talk about somebody that didn't serve. He never even sinned. He never did any wrong. He came down and he was the perfect, as they say, lamb that was slain. So in his perfection, he experienced death for us so we could have eternal life. So again, death wasn't the initial outcome for man or plan. It was really man's actions. But because of that, then Jesus went through and died for us so we can have eternal life. Okay. So even answer your question a little bit more, and it's such an interesting, not interesting, when you say it doesn't have the power to change it. So if in the beginning, when God said that if you partake of this fruit, then you will surely die, and the wages of sin is death. So as the result of sin and us being in the sinful world, if death is a result of sin, and if God said, you know what, I just love him so much I just love man so much, I am not going to make them die even though they have sinned. That would be, for me, that would be terrible. That would be terrible. You know why? Because that would make God a liar. That would make what he said to be untrue. And he couldn't do that. Okay? He couldn't. He just couldn't do that. Even though for us it might make sense, we could just, but that would make that what he said untrue. And he can't lie. After when we go through question and answers and you guys just here listening to me, I'm talking and I just kind of make off onto different things. So, there's no time limit for these. So those of you here, we just chatting right now. But like, unlike parents, and I'm a parent and I do this, and it's terrible at times. No, it's terrible all the time I do it, but I do it at times. I tell my children, if you don't do such and such, you're not gonna do this, whatever. And then they don't fully do what they're supposed to do, and then I just maybe give in and just, okay, at first maybe I'm hard with it and I give in, but okay. And that's terrible though, because I'm training them to not trust what I'm saying, because I'm saying one thing, but then I'm giving in and I'm like, okay, you can get in. I might feel I'm being good to them, but I'm actually not, because I'm training them that, what, dad says something, but he doesn't mean it. He ultimately really is lying. But God can't even do that. The wages of sin is death. So he couldn't just erase it and say, like, you know what? I was wrong. I didn't tell the truth before. That's not the case anymore. Okay. Blanca, you are coming back. Okay. All right. So death, if God did not create it, it would not exist. It was God's quid pro quo. You die if you do this. So God had to create it. Jesus, God, died for us, but we are still suffering. Grief is unique, a unique experience. That is not helpful because everything and all in our life is unique. Okay, I think you're putting in two things together, so I might just be going a little bit. So let me go with the first part first. The unique grief part, I don't think I got that part yet. This your last question, well, not last, your last question in the section. So I could spend some time, or we could spend some time talking like this. I'll go into the chat. For those of you still here, we'll still go into the chat, but I want to see how I can answer this as best as I can. All right. So God did not create it. It would not exist. It was God's quid pro quo. If you die, you die if you do this. So God had to create it. Jesus, God, died for us, but we are still suffering. Okay. So as best as I can answer this and how I understand your question. So Jesus, he died for us, but we're still suffering. So, I mean, the primary scripture that most of people reference is John 3:16. It says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." So his Son, he gave his Son Jesus Christ that died for us, and he died for the world. So that means he died for everybody, but not everybody actually receives eternal life. There's a condition in there as well too. It says that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. So even though he died for everyone, not everyone receives what they call the free gift of salvation. There's still that condition, which is like free will, that we have to accept his death, his burial, and also his resurrection as the atonement for our sins. So it's still a condition that's in there, and it doesn't totally it doesn't eradicate death for everyone. That's the first point I'll say with that. But then even for us that have accepted Christ, accepted his death, and accepted his salvation through him, it doesn't eliminate us from the death that we have faced on this earth here. Our quote unquote reward for believing and accepting the gift of salvation is not life on earth here. Our reward is for eternal life afterwards. Okay, so we're not when we've accepted that gift that Jesus died for us, we're not strictly, this is not all there is to be here. We're more looking ahead to eternal life in heaven with him. And even the life that we live on earth here, like even I was just talking about as a parent, I still sin at times. So I still have, sin, my flesh, thoughts. There's still sin, as Paul said, like there's still sin that's quote unquote can be present with me, even though I've accepted that I've been saved by grace through faith in Christ. So I still have sin at times with me, but I'm not considered a quote unquote sinner. I'm already saved by grace. So I don't want to throw too many words. I'm sorry not to mix it up too much. Let me just put it back to this. When we accept Christ, it's more so for the future. We're not going to live the perfect life here. Our eternity is where we are glorified together with Christ. So we still are going through the sufferings. We're still going to go through the pain. We're still going to go through some of the things on this earth as well, because we're still here. Hopefully that makes any. Okay, but so you come back. So God loves us. No. So God loves us conditionally. God loves us unconditionally, but we don't all accept his love. It's still based upon our response to him. So like if somebody has a gift, if I have a gift to give somebody for Christmas or birthday, whatever it is, you could buy a gift, or there's a gift available for everyone. But if the person doesn't receive the gift, then that's on the person. If he has a gift that's available for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, his love was unconditional. He loved us, and the way I see it too, he loved us even when we were in sin. So even when I was, whatever condition, in my worst space, any one of us in our worst place, at our worst time in life, when we were doing our worst deed that we could ever think of, God loved us and he died for us at that point too. But it's still up to us to decide if we're going to receive that gift of salvation or not. That's still on us to do so, because he can't force, because he loves us. And this is this man by name Frank Turek, which is I enjoy. He's right from New Jersey as well too. But that because he loves us, it also requires us to have free will to accept or reject him as well. So his love requires us to have free will, because boyfriend, girlfriend, boy, girl, whatever. If I love someone, if the boy loves the girl, and he forces the girl to love him, then that's not love. So same way with God. If God loves us so much, he has to also give us free will to either accept his love or to then not. And there are people that just do not accept. Isn't that exciting? Blanca, we probably have to have a conversation offline as well too, because I know we're going more into than the grief program, but I appreciate you being on. So okay, so maybe you can send me an email. That'd be good. All right, so I do want to answer as many questions as I can, but okay, is that fair, Blanca? All right, there we go. Thank you. But I appreciate your questions, because it's good for me. It's good for everyone as well too. All right, let me I don't know how many people are still on. Oh, okay, we still got quite a few on. So you guys have listened to me and Blanca answering. Let's go to anything else in the chat. I'm gonna just go through very quickly in chat. Okay, so I'm scrolling up really quickly to see what's on. All right, so these are where people are saying what state they're from: North Carolina, Missouri. Beautiful, wonderful. And thank you all for your time and just for being here. And hopefully you guys got something from the session, this brief session. And I put the Facebook group in there, so you join the Facebook group. Okay, I'm just looking through really quickly. If I see any questions. But hopefully you got something from this session. If you did, just put it in chat as well too, please. Somebody's journaling. Okay, Okay, journaling. Somebody said about audio journaling. Okay, that's good. So journaling, pen and paper is maybe I say simpler, but if you could do video or audio as well, but there's something special about pen and paper as well that kind of helps you. You see it kind of almost, it's like your thoughts becoming flesh. They're actually coming out onto paper, taking on a physical form. Okay. Okay, so Louise Bishop says, journaling poses certain issues for me. I cannot risk anyone finding and reading some of my thoughts. Editing what I write kind of defeats purpose. Yeah, so we don't want to edit. You want to be able to write as freely as possible. Someone else, it wasn't you, that asked a question in the other area. People that are around you, I would encourage you to mention some. This is your private journal. If you know they're going to come across it, and tell them to please respect your space and go from there. Okay. If not, then, or in addition to that, hide it away as well. Okay. So that's the journaling. So Lady M says, how can people here stay in touch online? So, I mean, Facebook is great. The Facebook group, I put that in there as well. Okay. Oh. Lee says it's late here, time for dinner. Okay, I think Lee was in France, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Anxiety, we talked about anxiety. Okay, so Lynn talked about focusing on breathing. Okay, so breath work and learning breath work as well. Okay. Journaling. Olga says our testimony can help others. Absolutely. I love that. All right. So we have a testimony to share. Our story is, and this is another part and a key component of this group atmosphere that we're able to be on this space, because not so much just about what help can you receive in the group, but also what help can you provide to others? Because there can be people in here that you help to encourage and support them too. And sometimes people come on here and they're like, well, I'm grieving. How can I help anyone else? No, we all help each other by being here, by people seeing others, even in the chat and typing and chatting and seeing they're not alone, that helps. And even some of the things that we may say to encourage, as I saw some people here as well. So that is definitely very helpful to help other people as well. Okay. So nicey, is that, do I have to cry? I see you sent the question again. Do I have to cry? It kind of popped up. So a family member asked me if I cried yet. I haven't cried. Both my parents died from illness, so their death wasn't sudden. I knew their health was declining. So when they passed, I was at peace, had time to accept it. Okay, good point. Denise. So Nisi. All right, beautiful. Thank you. All right, so Nisi, thank you for sharing. So, I mean, that's one of the key things as well, too. When you say, do you have to cry? No, you don't have to cry. As I said before, some people didn't want to cry. Some people wanted to cry. It's really finding out where you are. If you didn't cry, it's not fair for someone else to tell you that you should cry or you should go through grief this way, because no one can put that on you. Because grief is, as talking to Blanca, this is how I'm saying it, grief is personal. It's unique. It's how you experience grief for yourself. And you attempting to experience it for someone else, or how they should experience it, is not going to allow you to go through how you have to experience it for yourself. Again, my role, or our role in here, is help you to go to move forward and not stay stuck in one space in how you experience grief. So insofar as crying or not crying, just because you haven't cried is fine. Because remember, the problem is you see where you are, and then what does better look like to you? And that's totally your choice. That's your decision to make. All right. So if better for you is not necessarily the crying aspect, then that's not something that you have to necessarily work on. We want you to get better. We don't want you to get better according to your friend or according to your cousin or according to anyone else. We want you to get better according to what Nisi says is better for her. Because only Nisi knows what is better for Nisi. Okay? Hopefully that help. All right, so crying is not necessary. If that's not where you are and that's not what is better looking like for you, then that's not necessary. But for someone else, it could be a totally different answer. They may want to be able to cry. All right. And then if they want to cry, then that's what they would work towards. Okay, so that's your answer. It's everyone's answer because it's the same process that we go through about what works for you or what is your decided, better, and then going from there. Okay. Okay. Okay, so Karen C. Okay. I'm still here. I'm now scrolling up. I'm sorry, I got thrown off. I'm trying to see where, because it mixes up. All right. Let me. Okay. If I missed any questions, please just let me know. To encourage you. What about grief for a parent who was abusive? Okay. What if grief for a parent that was abusive? So as I kind of stated before, in reference to like when we come on here, we're here for you. So we're addressing, how grief is impacting you. So again, why I said if you have family members, you have them to come on for themselves because how it's impacting them is for themselves. But for your question in particular, for an abusive parent and grieving over abusive parent, it's still how is that impacting you? Okay, and determining how is that impacting you in your life right now? Is it you may not be mourning in the way that I'm sure you probably not mourning in the way that another person may mourn for abuse, but you are mourning. Okay, this is to JJ, right? You are going through mourning in some way. So how is that impacting you? And still answering the questions to see how is it impacting you, whether they were abusive or not abusive or what have you. How is that impacting you right now, today? And then from that, okay, a year from now, if you would think a year from now and JJ is doing better, what does that look like for you to be doing better in that regards? Okay, so thank you, JJ. Okay, so we got the assessment. All right, get a book. So I'm looking. Sean, thank you for putting that on there and just being honest with your feelings. Okay. Now, again, when we do this like journaling, I know you put a lot on there. This is for you. Okay. This is for you, but it's good that you put out here. It's not, no one's gonna criticize what you wrote or what you said or anything like that. It's just you being honest in where you are. That's that starting point that we all start from. Okay. It could be angry, it could be confused, it could be unsure, it could be skeptical, it could be, all these different things we were going through. It could be crying, it could be not crying. Okay. Karen C. I'm attempting to find, because I see you said you had a question, but I don't see your question. All right. I see Dorothy said right after Sean, I understand your feelings, Sean. Okay, can't see. Okay, hello, I'm a long-time hospice caregiver, recently widow. I thought I could handle anyone transitioning. However, this pain is so deep. Sometimes feel unbearable. I'm trying to handle it, but it's not working. Can you please guide me? I appreciate your support session. I will be with him again. Okay, Karen, thank you for putting it again, because I'm sorry I didn't see it before up there. So I'm sorry about your loss, your husband, in reference to dealing with loss. And I shared my story with my friend, and sometimes we think we're at a place that we can just handle it when it comes, but then that's when for me, it kind of shook me the hardest, because I didn't, I took it lightly, and grief is so, devastating. Loss is so devastating to us, because, in a sense, it's that great pain because of something that it's not the way we're supposed to be. It's not, it's that separation. We're supposed to, it's like talk about, we're supposed to be in community. So when we're separated from someone, it's a very painful thing for us. So when we're not prepared for it, or when we think we got it covered, can expose us to really some of the hardest parts of it, I'll say. So, I mean, Karen, without you going into all detail on here, I still encourage you to go through, some of the steps that we started with on here as well too, in regards to like seeing how is it impacting you or affecting you in your life personally. Now, like when I go through these questions and I say it like determine, decide, develop, deliver, the determine part, even though I'm saying the same question over, for each person, it's a different answer. And then there's a different path because it's a different starting point. So it's a different path for you to take from there as well. But, get to your starting point. If you can answer those questions. I know people come on here and they see the questions, but then they, get some of the information that we share, and sometimes they don't go ahead and do the questions, but really do the questions, let it, reflect, sit with the questions for a little bit, reflect on the questions and the answers, and see how your grief is really impacting you with the loss of your husband. And, let that be a starting point. Then I would say, before I even tell you anything else, come back. So if you sign up, hopefully you sign up for the repeat sessions that we have, then join us for those sessions as well to kind of see how we can take it forward. Okay. So do the assessment questionnaire. Okay. It will be helpful. Just even the reflecting on it. We've had people that just look through the questions, and they told me after they didn't even answer it, but they just looked at it, caused them to reflect and ask themselves some questions that made them think about what they were experiencing. So it's really helpful just in that regards. Okay. Okay. I'm scrolling through. It kind of jumps a bit. Zoom link. So I'm not in the questions section anymore. Put any questions in the chat area. There's no Zoom link. There's only a link to sign up so you can be notified of the upcoming sessions. All right. I can put that here again. I'm going to put the Facebook group here for one, because that's where we post a lot of information there. And then I'm going to put the sign up. Be notified of upcoming sessions. Okay. Okay. So Tiana said, I didn't. Oh, okay. So you sent a direct message to me. Can you post it in the general? Can you post it in the general section so I can see it there? Because when I jump back and forth. Okay. 1 second. Olga, I'm going to answer your question in a second. Give me one. I'm just, because Karen is there again. So Karen says, I answered the questionnaire. Almost everything was no, not seeing any growth. Okay. All right. So can you come back on? Because then that'll be one of the sessions that we go through in depth with you. But if you can come back on to repeat sessions as well, it'd be a good space. Now there's another determined tool we use, but let's just stick with the assessment questionnaire that you have there. So out of those areas that you have, if you said you answer no to everything, so you have emotional well-being, physical health, social connection, mental and cognitive health, and then purpose and meaning. So you have all of those sections that are there. And if all your answers you say are no, out of those areas that are there, you're going to have to decide which one it is that you would want to address first. Which one is the it could be the one that you feel is impacting your life the most. So you're going to decide for yourself which area it is, and then from there, then we're going to take some steps. But that will be in the next session. Okay. So if you've answered it already, you still look at those questions and see which one you feel is the area that you need to work on first for yourself out of those 5. Okay. All right. So all right. You're welcome, Karen. All right, Tiana, one moment. You're going to send it over. Okay. So let me go to Olga. Bernadette. Well, no, I'm going to Olga because I told Olga. All right. When we get to the questions area, I appreciate you guys' patience because I attempt to answer everyone as much as. So I have Olga's right now. This is what I have to do. I'm doing a mental note. I have Olga's question to answer. Then I have Bernadette who put something in the question. And then at the same time, Tiana is putting it again in the area. Okay. Okay. So we're going to Olga first. Let me see, Olga. Okay. How can you find closure if you lost someone traumatic and unexpected, didn't get to say goodbye? This is what I'm dealing with. Even thought out last moments were beautiful together. Walking the boardwalk and holding hands, talking about our future, told each other how much we loved one another. 26 years married, then it just dropped and was gone in 2 seconds. Olga, I'm sorry about your experience and your loss, and and I appreciate you even sharing on this platform and just feeling this is a safe space because again, just we're all here grieving in some capacity, and that's the kind of space we want to have where we all understand in that regard. So when you say about finding closure, remember how we work in this program. We definitely guide and encourage and support, but it's really what we say is client led. So it's individual, it's unique for each person because every one of you are unique individuals, and the way you're experiencing grief is going to be unique and personal for you as well too. So we just want to be here and support you on your journey. So you state in your question, how can you find closure? my next question for you would be, what does closure look like? As I've discussed here already, there's different people have different goals. Some people want to cry, some people don't want to cry. That's their quote unquote next step. When you say closure, how can you find closure? What do you see or feel as closure? Okay, because that's essentially once you determine where you are, how it's impacting you. So still, I would say to go through the questionnaire, also do the journaling because that helps with that as well too. You're also going to look and say, okay, I want closure, and in your mind, you have something that closure looks like, and maybe you haven't had it posed to you like I'm posing to you right now, but what does it look like to say that you have closure? And then this is what we would then walk with you on your journey to work towards. But even right now, I would ask you, what is to say that, what, Olga, I found, when Olga's able to say, I found closure, what does that look like? Okay, while you may be answering, hopefully in the chat. So I see Bernadette says, I'm just hurting and missing my son and my brother. And I'm just lost every day. I wake up crying and cry myself to sleep every night. I don't think I will ever feel happy again. Okay. And I shared a little bit about this before. A lot of times we just go through grief and we know it's hurting. We know it's devastating. We know it's painful. We know we're feeling it, but we haven't reflected to see where is it hurting us? How is it hurting us? And this is what the steps of these programs, why they're so important for us as we're grieving, for us to start to see, okay, I'm not just feeling pain everywhere. I'm feeling pain in these areas. Okay. And I know this is just a side example, but I remember having a toothache. Okay. And hopefully you guys, everyone is still here. It'll make sense to you. And understand what I'm saying. I remember having a toothache before. And what was hurting? Everything was hurting. My mouth, my face, my body, everything was sensitive because this toothache was hurting. It was bad toothache. But even though I was everything was hurting and everything was being affected, I couldn't eat, I couldn't talk, couldn't sleep, couldn't really enjoy certain things or just even have fun. Couldn't smile. Didn't want to smile. Didn't want to laugh, have fun, whatever. It was really because it was my tooth that needed to be addressed. Yet everything was impacted by it. As what you're saying, everything is, I'm just hurting overall. But we really, in order for me to address that, I had to address my tooth. And then guess what? Once I was able to address my tooth, then the other parts were not magically better, but you understand what I'm saying with that? So Bernadette is still to kind of come through and do some of the steps of this program, whether it's the questionnaire or the journaling or both or what have you, and see how is it impact you? Where is it actually impacting you? Where is it your toothache? Is it a splinter? You have some, I'm just using the examples. Just please just understand the examples I'm using. Using these tools to figure out where is my grief affecting and impacting me, and then we will start to take steps for you to move forward and have some progress in that area, which then can affect and improve other areas as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going off of memory right now. So I know Olga's possibly getting back to me. Okay. I see Olga in the question area. And then Tiana, I still remember you in the chat. I'll go back to the chat in a second and see if you was able to put it there. Okay. So Olga said, would closure be acceptance right now I know he's gone, not coming back, but still don't believe it. It's been 2 years. I miss him so much. 6 months later, after, then had another loss, diagnosis, breast cancer, had bilateral mastectomy, 2 surgeries, 4 biopsies. Made. He's not, I'm mad he's not here to help me. Okay. All right. So when you say closure, I mean, you kind of answer it in a question, because you say, would closure be acceptance? So I think I'm not doing this like harshly. I'm doing this back to you, because I want you to like really figure out for yourself, what does closure look like for you? All right, because you still kind of posed it as a question to me. And again, my as a coach and as a grief to life coach in this space, and I don't think I have a right for any one of you to tell you how you should grieve. And I'm here to help you to get to where you are and to get to the next steps. So I can't tell you that closure is acceptance. Okay, that's not my position. And I'm going to put it back to you. And maybe if you come back next week when we have the other sessions, if you sign up for it, then, you could take it further. But, think about it throughout this week, even as you maybe answer the questions and reflect on it. What does that closure look like for you? And it also seems like you have, grief. As we shared, grief is definitely, we talk about loss of a loved one, but there's grief in different aspects and areas of life as well too. And it seems like you have, other experiences that you're grieving as well. Okay. So it's still, I'm just saying that you may think that what you're experiencing is just from loss of your husband, but it seems like you may have other grief as well that you're working through. But this is still the same process, still the same procedure. I'm just maybe bringing it to light to you that it's not just one thing that you're thinking. Okay. So I'm just putting it back to you to, again, answer the questions. If you answer the questions, it actually helps to get you towards thinking like, well, what does it look like? Because in some of the questions, as you read it, what does it look like to have closure? What does it look like to get better or to feel better? Okay. So still go through, answer the questions, and then the questions. These are just, there's 30 questions here, and I'm just being honest with every one of you. There's 30 questions here. You guys are all reading the same 30 questions. However, the way you guys answer it is what makes it special and unique and very personal experience for you, and for you to get personal healing. Okay. So it's still about doing the same steps that we're going through, and walking the same journey, but we're here to walk with you on whatever journey that is. Okay. But it's the same things we're going to go through. Okay. All right. So you're welcome, Olga. And hopefully that helped. All right. Questionnaire link in the chat and the Q&A. Yes. Let me do it again. I'm coming back to Tiana, if I'm not mistaken. I think Tiana was maybe the last one, but we'll see. So these are the questionnaires. I'm put this into the general chat. And then I'm going to put, this is the questionnaire. I'm also going to put our Facebook group. All right. So all of you should be at the very least joining our Facebook group. Okay. And then for those of you who want to be part of the upcoming sessions, I'm going to put that here as well. And then anything else we put in there? Let's see. I did this before. Someone asked me for the ebook. I'll put the ebook in there. Okay. I'm just doing it again because it makes it easier for everyone to see. And I think that was all. Okay. All right. All right. So let's see. And thank you guys for all being here. Let's go through. I'm gonna see if I see Tiana. So I'm not gonna go back into the questions section. Okay. JJ, I just put the questionnaire in the chat section. Okay. If you scroll to the bottom, well, right above where you just, well, in the chat area, not the question section, it says 30 assessment questions, and there's a link for that. Okay. And also, if you sign up for this, then the emails that you have gotten from us, especially the one that you would have got yesterday, if you sign up for today's, then that would have had a video of me in there, and that would have had the questionnaire in that email, and the one-day worksheet. All right, so let me go to Tiana. Okay, so Tiana, email address. It's the email address that you would have received any of our materials from. So it's info@iamlighthouse.com, but you would have received it. Karen, thank you also. Yeah, because the questionnaire is also in the handouts, but I also put a link in there. So you have multiple ways to get that. All right, so the email address is any emails you've gotten from us, you could just email back there. And like I said, my wife and I will answer that. Okay, now let me go. My situation is controlled until my mom's passing. I want no apology with so much weight on me. My family has left everything on me and continues to pull what they need from me. If I don't, I don't want to be bothered with them. Okay. Mom is not even late to rest. They are not giving any help, and I am all the way across the country to think I'm okay because I'm going about my day to day, but I have no choice. I won't be able to take care of myself or moms. So I don't want to be isolated now. And we'll call the hotline, which I have to talk. I'm just reading through it. Tiana, give me a second because my thing keeps switching too. Because I take a moment I have not in pain to cope with travel. This is my first time here, and I'm even having the opportunity to take a step towards helping myself. While I deal with feeling like I failed my mom because she never made it out of the hospital, and the guilt I couldn't do anything more than I did, knowing I can't anymore. Okay. All right, Tiana, thank you for sharing, and sorry about your loss with your mom and everything I'm reading here. I mean, a couple of things. For one, family. So family is definitely challenging when it comes to grief. I think for every one of us. Reason being, that same thing like I spoke before, I think with Blanca about that grief is unique, and we're all grieving differently, even within a family. You know, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, what have you. Everyone is experiencing grief, yet it's different, and it's impacting us all individually. So it just makes it it's a very hard situation at times, because so it's such I say emotionally charged in some families, but it's just a very sensitive time for everyone. So family is definitely a challenging space to be in, and not everyone is doing something in regards to getting some help for their grief. And some people are just going about as if they think everything is okay, or expecting other people to do other stuff, which seems like they're looking at you to do. A couple of things I'll say with this. That's why we kind of encourage to have the support and encouragement from a community, like our group, our Facebook group, our community even coming on today, because we can support you in some way. Even though you may have family members that are close to you, it's not every community or group of people that can support you as you're grieving, but being able to come to one that does understand grief can help. And what I found is that when you have that supportive community, then it actually helps you to be able to, I'll use the word tolerate, maybe not always tolerate, but just to deal with or to be around the other communities that we go through, that we have in our lives as well too. So having a place that you can even express your story and some of the things going on, you're concerned that they're putting all the stuff on you, and the feelings that you have, it's helping you because you have some kind of an outlet here. So now when you go back to your other community and your family and stuff like that, at least you've been able to express somewhere safely here, and hopefully get some encouragement even from some of the things you may have heard today. So I'll use the word fix. Like our session here today and what I share is not able to quote unquote fix. I'm just using a word loosely, like other people. But what I can do, or what I aim to do, is help everyone that's on here watching, listening, to be able to deal with the other situations a little bit better. Okay. So that's a couple of things I said there. Another thing I'll say too, I know it seems like they're putting a lot of stuff on you. I would encourage you as much as possible to, speak honestly with them, communicate with them. Because again, sometimes we go through and we expect that they should understand, like they should understand that, you're handling this, you're handling that, you handle this, whatever, all these different things you're going through. But, when they're grieving themselves in their own way, it may not be like how you're grieving. When they're grieving themselves, we tend to think about ourselves only. Okay. And I'm thinking from their perspective as well, that they're not necessarily considering that, the grief that you're going through, and maybe just putting things on you. So from your perspective, because I'm here to help you as much as I can today, be honest and communicate that with them of what you can and can do, and what you're willing to do, and what you're, not willing to do, and what they should handle, what they can handle, and just take on, and don't look to overwhelm yourself because they're like putting stuff on you. Because what I found, it's not just with grief, just with life period. I've been through this as well. They see that you can handle a lot of stuff, so what they do is they'll just keep putting stuff on you, put stuff on you, and it gets to a point where it becomes unbearable. But it's like you can develop resentment. I'm speaking personally for myself as well. You could develop resentment because you've taken on all these things that really, because you haven't been vocal and spoken up, now you have to deal with them. So again, my words to you is to be honest, communicate with them, be vocal, and share with them what you will and will not do. Set your boundaries, as I say. Set your line, and not to be harsh. Okay, not to be harsh. Be firm, but not harsh. There's a way to do that. Be firm, but not harsh. And I think you'll be better for it, and they'll also be better for that as well. In regards to some things you were talking about with your mom, let me just see. The isolation part, because you mentioned about being isolated, don't want to be isolated. Everyone that has been on here today, and I don't know how many people we had on today. It was quite a bit. I didn't get to see, but everyone that's been on today, you connected to a community, and you don't have to feel isolated anymore. And hopefully you guys can sense it from this space that I attempt to create. The space, my wife and I, and the Lord has created this space that we can be quote unquote free and authentic in how we're feeling. And you don't have to feel isolated. Anyone that's been here today, that you can, come on here and be real with how you're feeling, things that you are happy about, things you are angry about, things you are confused about, things you have questions about. Okay. Just, there's a community that is here. Not to say that we have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. Only Lord God has all the answers, but we have a space that we can even pose our questions and put it out there as well. So I don't want anyone that has been on here today to feel like they are alone anymore. I think that's one of the main goals that I look for once you guys join, is to realize that, yeah, there's a place that I can be at, that I'm not by myself anymore. I'm not experiencing this grief by myself any longer. Okay. So hopefully that part right there was helpful for you too. And then now talking about your mom, and even to experience where she didn't make it out of the hospital and you feeling some guilt. I would, again, so many times we go through grief and we have pain, we have, and we may even term it as pain, but we just know we don't feel good. We feel bad, terrible, devastated, what have you. And we're not quite sure why that is. This is why the, go back to the questions and the journaling, it really helps to clarify our thoughts and what we're experiencing and what we're going through. So as I've shared with others, and as this program is, it's important to start at that questionnaire and the assessment questions and the journaling, all right, and to see what it is, that how is it impacting you. Working through that first is your starting point, and then taking steps to move forward through that as well. Okay. It's the same thing. Remember, I told you I experienced the guilt with my dad. And, that video journaling for me was really, really, really helpful. And not to say that, I think about my dad still now. And as I shared earlier, I still grieve. I still can tear up at times as well, too. But then I also definitely can appreciate and be thankful for a lot of the times that I had with him. And as opposed to feeling that guilt and having guilt be the predominant feeling that I feel when I think about my dad, no, I have so many other feelings and wonderful memories and lessons and things like that has replaced that guilt. Okay. And replace may not be the best word, but it's overridden it in that regards. Okay. So those are the predominant feelings I think about my dad, as opposed to guilt. And I can be thankful. There's another part of journaling, which when we get more into journaling, for those who's going to join us for other stuff, other ways to journal. Gratitude journaling is one that comes to mind as well too. But don't get started with that if we just take the first steps first. The assessment questions for basically everyone here that's hasn't done it before. Even if you've been here for 2, 3, 4 times, you haven't done it. The assessment questions or doing the journal. Okay. Tiana, hopefully that helped you. Let me see. Okay. All right, hold on. That's exactly what's happening now. Resenting them because they have spoken up. Oh, you have spoken up and they ignore it. That's what it says. So and the resentment, and they're back at it. Yeah. So just responding back to you, even what you were just saying in regards to, set the boundaries. You can only do as much as you can do. There's only so much that you're going to be willing to do, and set that as your boundary. Now, obviously you want to, do things to honor your mother and do, make sure all that is together, make sure all that is right. But in regards to things that your family should be doing, there's only so much that you can do that and I would, kind of focus on that. You honor your mom in the best way that you can with what you have, with the, whether it's resources, time, ability. You do your part, and don't, yeah. Okay. I was just thinking of something else too, but I think I would just leave it at that right now for you. Okay. Yeah. Last thing I'll say with reference to that, don't take on more than you're able to handle. Yeah, I've done that as well too. And then it's end up hurting me. Well, I've done that. I've done it where you think you're being nice and you think you're being, you know, um, kind by doing all this extra stuff, but then it ends up hurting me. And I say it hurt me physically, mentally, emotionally as well. So don't take on more than you can handle, because it ends up making the situation worse. Okay. And you still need time to grieve for yourself. Okay. So I'm glad you're here, Tiana. JJ says, how can you allow yourself to cry? Is crying um, is crying what you want to accomplish or to achieve, JJ? Okay, you want to be able to cry. Okay, so if you want to be able to cry, um, what is keeping you from crying? Hmm. So you relate crying to, well, whenever you cried, then you were punished. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a something, even in our society, where we see crying as a form of weakness, when it's not at all. Okay, so we relate it to a form of weakness, and we kind of raise in that way that crying is a form of weakness. So I'm just gonna kind of revert back to some of the things I've shared before in reference to the steps of this program. Okay, still doing the questions, journaling. Probably journaling for you, JJ, is going to be, even more important in that regards, for you to get all your thoughts, kind of out, and to be what journaling does, it allows us to be free with our thoughts. Just remember, the big part of it is honesty and not fear of judgment. Okay, so it seems like when you were crying, and I'm just going off of what you said, all right? Again, I'm not therapy, not counseling, even though when we do coaching, some of the things that we may share can be, therapeutic, as people have said, or counsel, have you, but I'm going more of a coaching aspect. But if you do the journaling, it'll allow you to, be free with your thoughts, be free with your feelings without feeling any kind of a judgment for what it is, because it seems like with the crying aspect that, you were held back from expressing your emotions or expressing what may be true for you. So the journaling will be a step towards you at least expressing honesty. Okay. I'm not saying that you're going to start flowing and crying when you're journaling, but it's a way for you to actually start to honestly air what you're feeling and put it onto paper in that regards. Okay. So this is steps. It's kind of like a little roundabout way to get to where you're looking to. Because when you say you want to cry, I'm looking further at I'm looking further through your message to say you really want to be free to express your emotions. Okay. So journaling is what helps us to do that. The Bible talks about, two things. I mean, when we talk about crying, that crying is not, it's fine to cry. Remember it said weeping may endure for a night. That's, we could say crying. And then there's other scriptures there, crying unto the Lord. Crying is natural, and it shouldn't be anything to be ashamed about crying. As much or as little as we're going to cry, but not to be ashamed at whatever level or amount we're going to cry. And then writing, we talks about writing the vision, make it plain that he may run that readeth it. So when we write and journal and writing out these things is helping us to get some clarity for this journey that we're on as well. Okay. So journaling, I think, is going to help you to start to express some of your emotions more freely. Okay. All right. You're welcome, JJ. Mary M., you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being on, all of you. Okay. Thank you, Tiana. Thank you all for being here. And for everyone that was sharing and everything, I'm going to do one more question and then I'm going to end. Okay. Because we did a nice 4 hours, almost. All right. So, Bernadette says, I don't want to cry and they want to cry. What's your view on that? Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I think I'm saying it in that last statement I was making as well, that just being free to express our emotions, cry as much as we want to or as little as we want to. So I'm not for someone telling someone else that they should be crying more, or someone else telling someone that they should be crying less. All right. If we're honest with our emotions, then we're able to cry if we feel like crying. If we don't feel like crying, we're honest with our emotions and we're perfectly justified to not cry. Personally, I cry, but I don't say I cry that much. I probably cry less than what I've seen other people cry, but I'm fine with crying the level that I cry. And then also when someone cries a lot, I shouldn't say, well, you shouldn't cry as much like me. No. Lord designed each of us individually, unique, different capacities, different emotional capacities. My wife and I, we cry differently. She cries more than I do, and that's fine. That's what makes us, husband and wife. In that regards, we, complement, and not just husband and wife, but just people. We're all individually, uniquely made, and it's for us to be able to freely express our emotions without fear of, what I would say, punishment, as we just saw before, or judgment. That's why the journaling is great, because it gets us to be us, especially when we're not looking for someone else to read it, and we're not afraid of someone else reading, as some people have written on here as well too. Because then, if we think someone else is going to read it, we're not going to be us. we're going to be right so that it sounds good, or so that they may not say something or doesn't offend. But grief is hard. Grief can be offensive to people, even though it's not. I'm not saying to offend people, but how we grieve and what we may be experiencing, what we may be thinking, can be offensive to people. But until we get to the point where we're being honest with how we are grieving, then we it's hard for us to move forward in life. Okay. All right. I think I am Bernadette. Okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here. I'm going to play one last 2-minute video. It's just kind of wrapping up some of the stuff that we had. And look forward to seeing you guys. You guys had the links. Hopefully you signed up for that so you can be part of the next session that we have coming up. And after the video ends, which is 2 minutes, then I will end this session. I'll be in the chat though in the meantime, okay?
Grief can feel overwhelming, but you're not alone. Grief to Life coaching helps you grow through grief, not just go through it. We guide you from heartbreak to healing, from loss to life. When we experience deep loss, the emotions don't always make sense. Grief can show up as anger, sudden, sharp, and unexpected. It can bring anxiety, fear of what's next. And often, there's guilt about what we did or didn't do. These all are natural, but they don't have to define us. Here are 3 truths we hold on to. 1, grief doesn't have to last forever. Healing is possible. 2, grief shared is grief divided. Talking helps. And 3, it's okay to not be okay, but don't stay not okay. There's life after loss, and we're here to help you find it. Grief to Life coaching is for those who are hurting, for those who've lost a loved one and feel stuck, for anyone searching for healing, for people who want support but don't know where to start, and for those looking for direction in a life that suddenly feels off course. Our coaching helps you rediscover your identity. You don't have to stay stuck in sorrow. Let us help you move from grief to life. Visit www.grieftolife.com.